and all those things.
And I was like, what?
That's right.
That's a total different
Oh, yeah.
dealing with dealing these for your group. Dealing with
Because I had
okay.
Well, you just printed it.
Hey, hello everyone. I guess we're on track now. It's 6 o'clock. That's for later.
No, but did we get to teach it?
Yes, actually, yes. It'll be a group activity we're gonna work on. So, welcome to Classroom Management and Discipline Techniques. Laredo, I know you're already online. My name is Carlos Olvera, and we'll be gonna be talking about classroom management. This is the first session of 3. That's how important classroom management is, because without classroom management, you're gonna have problems throughout the whole year. So, when it comes to classroom management, I wanted to share a variety of examples, and there's a lot of subtopics to talk about. But I always bring back instruction. So as I shared before, if you plan for your instruction and you have your documents ready, you have your resources ready, your materials, then things should run smoother. And students can tell right away. I think we've all been there where we see a teacher that wasn't prepared, shows up the day of, and pretty much says, okay, well, open up to page this and let's start working on the problems. I think we've all had a teacher like that, whether in a public school, private school, or even college. It happens. You're gonna have people that don't do much planning. The problem is they might get away with it because the students react well, the sharp kids, or they're self-motivated or they're independent. But when you've got a group of regular kids that need that instruction or need that direct, supervision and that direct teaching, you're probably gonna have problems, okay? So what I passed out, Laredo, just so you know, what I passed out before we get started was a form, or not form, I passed out these handbooks. This one, the sample from Ben Lippin School. That's a campus handbook. And then I passed out the Fort Bend ISD handbook and a BISD handbook. And I placed them in the tables as table copies, which you're welcome to keep, because that's going to be part of an activity that the folks here live will work on. And also at home, Laredo people, or even Brownsville people that are online, you would have to refer to those 3 handbooks. The green one, the one from Fort Bend, and the one from BISD, because we are going to have a review of those in a discussion. Some of you might have seen a handbook by now, a campus handbook. Some of you may not, but I do want to have an activity where you'll be reviewing them, and then we're going to be discussing. Okay, and like I said, some of you have been exposed to them, maybe not even at a campus level, but in an organization or whatever other job you had. Usually people give you a handbook just to show you how things run. So that is on your table, and we're going to be reviewing those. Let me start the slideshow. Okay. For this session 1 of 3, we are going to be defining classroom management, and you've already gone over a lot of this presentation, but I do want to elaborate and clarify on certain topics, certain subtopics, and also give you a lot of examples. Okay. Some of you have handled discipline before. Some of you have experienced issues with discipline. Some of you may not. But we'll be going over some pointers. Classroom management, what's the foundation? The actual idea of classroom discipline, and certain flexibilities and freedoms that you're able to work on with your students. And this is just part 1. I do integrate videos more in this session. I do expect more classroom discussion, and of course, always use your teacher voice. Very important. I asked the lady that came in first and asked her, can you hear me? Because I can't tell if you can hear me at home, but apparently you can, so that's a good sign. Okay, so we're going to be talking about those topics, and there's going to be a lot of scenarios you're going to hear. Some are, I've always said that I tell people the good, the bad, and the ugly. You might as well know about it because you're going to be facing it. Some of you work already in a high school, so you get to see variety, I'm sure. I actually attended that high school when I was a teenager, so I remember. You know, I was one of them, one of the good ones though. I was one of the good kids, okay? And some of you are already working third grade, I believe. Third grade, okay, so discipline, you know, varies, but of course there's always going to be, you know, classroom management issues. We have a police officer, so you handle, you know, students from the district, and you know what they, what they can be capable of, and so we're gonna have a variety of experiences shared, and I will ask you to share. You don't have to name the school, you don't have to name the grade level, or you know, but at least it's good that everyone hear what's out there. Now, I'm gonna ask you, oh, thank you. I'm glad you're joining that group because that's where the packets are, okay? Okay. So Laredo, please feel free to chime in on any comments you have or any questions. Also, make sure you have your Padlet open because since you don't have a hard copy like the folks here, you can always access those campus handbooks from the Padlet. And you can do the activity also and then share your feedback through the chat with John, okay? Now, I like to start with this video, and I'm assuming, and this, I'm hoping actually, that everybody saw the video, Mr. Grimes, okay? I choose that video because I have a thing for old movies, black and white movies. I was raised with them. You know, I really enjoy them. There's something classic about them. But this video was created by a publishing company. So a textbook company made this video, and it pretty much shares in very clear way what are the options of a teacher and how you handle things, okay? How you handle the situation really does make a difference. All of you, I can tell you right now, all of you will have certain classroom management issues or maybe a student acting up or something, every single one of you, okay? Because things happen. Students have bad days. Teachers have bad days. The students' parents had a bad night and something happened, okay? I'm gonna share something with you right now that happened to me. About an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago, I realized that I had left my car keys in my colleague's car, and my colleague had left because he had been driving me around all day long to visit schools. So he left. He dropped me off at central office and then he left. I called him up, where are you? I'm in Kingsville. So he has my car keys and my house keys right now. And this is calm right here, okay? I cannot get into my home right now or my car. But I happen to have a dear friend of mine that has a key to my home. The gentleman, my colleague, is gonna FedEx the keys over. I'm going to get a hold of another car, and it's gonna be fine. And I'm here. So at 9 o'clock, my buddy is going to come and pick me up. But see, things happen right before you get to work. The night before, things happen. So don't feel that, you know, you have to, you know, or just be careful about showing too much. And some kids will walk into your classroom with a face, and you can tell something's going on already. And that's a time to really be aware of your students. I've shared with you before, get to know your students, because that way at least you can anticipate or not escalate any situations. I think you've all been exposed to maybe back in the day, or an example of a teacher said, "You're late again." I know I've heard it. It wasn't me, but it was another kid, because I have a thing about being early. But I remember the kid just looking at the teacher and walking, and you know, didn't say anything. But you could tell that the student was upset. But the teacher, first reaction, "You're late again." You know, but of course the tone. And we're gonna touch on tone also. How you talk, how you express yourself. It really does make a difference. I was sharing with a gentleman from that high school that even the attire you wear. Okay, I used to wear a tie every time I presented, but to be honest, I'm kind of getting away with it right now because I'm enjoying just the no tie look. But it really does make you more formal. I walked into schools, and I think I shared it last time. I walked into a school, they didn't tell me anything. You'd be amazed what you can do when you walk into a school and, you know, you don't look like a thug. You know, they don't really say much. They're supposed to. They're supposed to ask you for your tag, but it happens, okay? So that's my little spiel on things happening before you get to the classroom. And this is, to be honest, this is my classroom right now. So, you know, I'll just deal with that at 9 o'clock, 9:01, and we'll see, we'll work with it. So I wanted to share with you, when you saw the video, you all started filling this out. You started completing this form right here, what's the form? Right there. Okay, this look familiar? Okay, and the reason I chose cats is because I have two nieces, and the cats are the nieces. And my sister has no children, so her cats are my nieces. But maintaining classroom management in effective and effective strategies, as you filled that in after watching Mr. Grimes, as you submitted those different examples or different bullets, this is what I was watching. I was watching an Excel spreadsheet with all the answers dated and timed. I'm gonna get to your section because I've been using this for a while. I like to track them. So the first person, I don't know who that was, but on 9/12 at 10:01, that person filled in after watching Mr. Grimes. Another person the next day, you know. So I can tell when it was done. This is a tool that is very handy because you saw the form. Very straightforward, very simple. Fill it in, submit. Okay, you can use that. That is a tool that teachers can use instructionally for a quick assessment, for anything like that. And the students can do it from their phone, from their iPad, from their laptop. You know, very quick, easy tool to use. Okay, you can. I embedded it into the Word document. You clicked on it, didn't you? And that's what I get. I get all the answers that were submitted.
It went through Google, right?
This is a Google form,
Google
yes.
Docs.
It's Google Doc.
Yeah, Google Docs. OneDrive has the same version, the OneDrive survey. Same principle. You create a form. People look at the form. They answer the questions, or they click or submit, and then it creates an Excel spreadsheet with all the answers. You know, now I could have asked for the name. I could have asked, you know, for at least for your initials, but I wanted to keep it anonymous, and it documents when it was completed. Okay, obviously this is in the morning because it's military time, and this would be in the morning also. 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock? Yeah. So that's 8 o'clock. This is 9 o'clock. So this is a wonderful tool that I like to use, and I bring it up so that every so often I like to share tools that you might be like, well, I can use that. I mean, a little survey, a quiz, anything like that. You have access to Google. You have access to OneDrive. As district employees, you have access to OneDrive in this district. If you're in another district, they usually have something for you. You know, there are Google districts out there. So I very quickly wanted to go over the video because I do want to discuss it. Okay. Let me just skip the ad. Okay. McGraw-Hill, that company is still around, by the way.
I actually like that video. It was funny.
The vast majority of behavior problems in the classroom involve minor breaches of discipline.
Let me get the lights.
These incidents frequently originate in the classroom situation itself and are within the control of the teacher. Disciplinary problems in the classroom are symptoms of underlying weaknesses in total learning situations. Mr. Grimes, mathematics teacher, is displeased with the progress of his 9th grade class in mathematics.
You see what low grade you made on your weekly mathematics test? More than half of you failed. Most of those who passed just got by. Nobody had 100%. This is the poorest class I've had in a long, long time. Most of you have no foundation at all. Now the trouble's with your attitude. You don't pay enough attention in class. You don't do enough work outside of it. You don't know what the word study means. You haven't the slightest idea. Don't you realize that mathematics is an important subject? I tell you right now that unless you get over your lazy habit and come up to the standards I've set for this class, many of you will have the pleasure of repeating this course next semester. Well, what is it?
Dr. Louis.
Justin. I have to leave for a few minutes. Now I want you to open your books and work out correct solutions to the problems you missed.
I can't make any sense out of this. I might as well quit.
Chippy never even took up this third problem. It's a chip.
He's got me scared to death. I'll just never pass this course. I'm so used to taking this stuff anyway. I'm afraid to take my paper home.
He's just a sourpuss.
The trouble is, you don't know what the word study means. You haven't the slightest idea.
Oh, that's right.
This. What kind of behavior do you call this? Wait a minute, you said where you are. This is the kind of behavior I might have expected of you. All I do is leave the room for a few minutes, and what do I find? Confusion, disorder. And you, what were you doing?
I was just going...
Going to what? Throw the eraser, I suppose. It's a good thing I caught you. I'll make an example out of you.
But
That's enough out of you. Leave this room and report to the principal's office immediately. Now hurry up, don't take all day. Who did that?
And we're not gonna watch the whole video, but now I like that video a lot. Not because it's so simple. It's to the point. Obviously, you know, it was scripted so that just to get to the point. But there's a lot of things that are not described in there that I always like to hear from you as. Some of you are teaching, some of you are about to get into the classroom. What do you see besides the obvious? Because you know, there's certain things that are very obvious, and you can use. Some of you cited them in the behavior. Some of you mentioned made the class stay 45 minutes after school for misbehaving. Grimes did not address the class with respect. Inappropriately handled the situation with the student. Teacher was degrading the students. Teacher then began to set unrealistic goals. Excessive discipline throughout the classroom to the point that he was not being respected. Teacher was writing on the board while giving his back. Well, I'm trying to remember that one. He discourages the students by giving them negative feedback, was quick to discipline every little thing that happened. Mass punishment, negative attitude, yell at the students. What else did you see? Because some of those things are very obvious. He wasn't being respectful to the students either. Obviously, the students were mocking him or acting like him and throwing things around. What else did you notice about the room itself?
It was boring.
Nothing on the wall, nothing instruction on the wall. As you get to higher grade levels, and even college, I know the teachers may not own the classroom in college because they visit, they go in there, and then it's not their assigned classroom sometimes. But even in high school, you have teachers that don't decorate. How welcoming is that classroom? Do you all remember a classroom, and you saw layouts last time, that are colorful? I still remember my third grade classroom where it actually smelled good. It was something about, I don't remember what scent it was, but I love the way it smelled. And to this day, I remember the scent, I don't know what it is. That was very memorable to me, and it made me feel very comfortable when I walked into that classroom. Plus the teacher, I think she was a first year teacher, very nice, we all loved her, of course, but it was very memorable, and we wanted to learn because it was a very welcoming environment. There's not a lot of decor. Not only decor, there was really nothing on the walls, period. I call it institutional white. Have you ever seen classrooms that are just white? There's nothing.
No.
To me, you're walking into somewhere that doesn't belong to anybody. You know, in elementary, you benefit from having your classroom all year long and your students all year long, and that's wonderful. So you can tell them, this is your classroom, take care of your classroom. In middle school, you can still do it. High school, teachers don't really move that much unless you're a floater. If you're a floater, that means you really don't have one classroom, but you go visit classrooms like first period, you're in that classroom. Second, third period, you're in that classroom. Fourth and fifth period, you're in that classroom. That's a floater. There's such a thing as floating teachers. It happens if they have their cart. Yes, sir.
One of the things I've been curious about, I know that you essentially have the classroom for the entire year. And they come white. Are you allowed to paint them?
Yes, if you communicate with the administration, there are certain colors that the district has that are, you know, beige and kind of depressing looking colors.
Because most of them are white, and
Yes.
you know, if you can color like a different, say according to school colors, or
You can. Administration will work with you. They might tell you, well, you might have to get your own paint,
I mean, that's
but they'll
that's
let you
fine.
work with it. They'll let you work with it.
Because I know, I mean, I was curious about that
Mhm.
because of you know, like start testing when it comes. I know that they make you cover everything up.
Yes,
Uh,
or tear it down. Take
would,
it down.
would that include, you know, if it's like, for instance, like a red coloring?
No, because a
Yeah,
red
we're
color
affected.
will not help the students in any way answer questions on the start.
Okay.
So you can approach the administration, and they're very cooperative. I know one colleague of mine, he was out there. He wasn't an art teacher, but he was the artistic type, and he asked if you could paint it black, the whole room. Somehow he managed to get an approval, and to this day we still, you know, make fun of it. But he got away with it, and the kids were fine with it, and the children learned. I wouldn't recommend it now, but this was about 15, 20 years ago.
Okay. I mean,
Okay.
another one of the activities we had is, remember in high school,
Yeah.
we would get the tiles, take them off, and in the back paint something on it. And instead of having this, you
Mhm.
see the drawings.
So long as you have the administration's permission, I've seen it done. I've seen people literally decorate or hang things or make I think I saw like a sort of net-looking thing in one of the classrooms. You know, some people have trees, you know, growing from the wall, and you know, it's your classroom.
Yeah, my
How-
juniors and seniors are doing that.
Juniors and
Taking the
seniors?
tiles off.
Yeah, that's one of the
Yeah,
things
my
we did
juniors
at
and
school.
seniors are doing that, and I also got permission to paint my portable.
Oh, there you go.
Excellent. So, you know, and that's a good question, because sometimes we don't ask. We don't ask, and we feel that they're gonna say no. All you have to do is ask. If anything, you tie it to instruction, you tie it to student motivation, student engagement, and students will respond well. There's certain activities, folks, like when you have your journals. I know last time we mentioned journals for the start of the day. You could have the students design or make their own cover and color it and put their name and put their, you know, whatever they want, personalize it, and then attach that to their journal. That is their journal. So now they take ownership of it. Same thing with the classroom. You're taking more ownership. Otherwise, it's just a room that you visit every so often, and you do your thing and you get out. So how welcoming you make it does make a difference. And that room was not welcoming at all. You know, it wasn't. I mean, I know the video is black and white, but come on, the wall was still very bare. And I've shared with you that student work is some of the best decor you can make or have, because you don't have to spend money on it. The students did their work. What better example of things happening in the classroom than the students' own work? No, good point. What else did you see in the class? What else did you see in the video? There's certain things that were not very obvious, but you could infer. You could do a little bit of inferring.
He was wasting time writing on the board. I mean, that's how the beginning of the video started. They started messing around because he had his back turned. Had he have had, you know, his instruction written down prior to that, it would have minimized.
Sure. Have certain things written down already.
Mhm.
Have certain materials already ready. Giving your back to the students, folks. Unless you got eyes in the back of your head, I don't trust kids. I mean, I love kids. I like to work with them, but you know, children are children. They're going to do things. Maturity level is not there sometimes. You know, so that's a good point. Giving them the back, yes, sir.
Adding to that, he spent too much time putting them down in instruction.
More time invested
More
in putting them
time,
down,
yeah.
degrading them.
degrading them.
Yeah.
And then
When
the
disruption.
students pick up on that because their self-esteem and self-confidence was on the floor,
Yeah.
and I think that beats off of the teacher.
It was all that way. It was all
Yeah.
that way.
He placed the blame on them failing a test.
Yeah.
You saw it in the students' faces.
Yeah, and then of course they commented, you know, they the whole point of the video was they commented, but either way, you could tell the students, you know, they were taking it and they weren't rude at or vulgar at him at the time, but I'll be honest with you, there are instances now that the students will not accept it as willing, as openly like that. They will respond. So it's always good not to escalate a situation because you are modeling the behavior. You know, yes, he was well suited up. You know, I use that from How I Met Your Mother. You know,
Suit up.
suit up.
Suit up.
Yeah, he was well suited up, but it didn't. You know, it didn't reflect the professionalism that you would think it should, because he was degrading them. He was criticizing them. It was all about their blame and their attitude.
It was
you
all
know?
a negative
Very
connotation.
negative, very negative. And you know, I have a personal philosophy. There are individuals in this world that are actually happy being unhappy. You might have already been picturing somebody in your mind. Seriously. There's people that are happy being unhappy. They're content with it. It's their lifestyle. It's their mode. It's sad, but that's their business, you know?
I don't have friends like
And everything is like, I heard the term Debbie Downer. Debbie Downer, okay, you know. You win the lottery, oh, but I have to pay taxes on the money. Really, you won the lottery, you're still complaining? It happens, folks. The fact that he's just throwing it out there and not thinking, you know, about the other perspective, what's going on, you know. He had the tool, he had the mathematics tool, what do you have? He was
Slide
holding it? Was
Slide
it the
rule?
protractor, compass?
What was slide rule?
Slide rule? He had something on his hand. You know, didn't make use of it. That reminds me right there of a situation where we were interviewing a gentleman. We were interviewing several people for a math position. And we asked the question, you know, children are actively disobeying or they're not paying attention, they're not performing well, and they're acting up. They're acting up in class. How would you answer it? So, you know, all the candidates, I think there were 3 or 4. Out of those 4, 3 of them were like, well, you know, I have to write a referral, I have to make sure I discipline them, I have to make sure, you know, that way they get back on track. And we're like, okay. The 4th gentleman, I found him, it's very memorable because I remember him saying, you know, if they're consistently doing that, I also have to reflect on myself. Am I not making it interesting enough that they're acting out? You know, I have to think, I have to factor that in. Yes, I have to discipline them, I have to manage the classroom, but is it also a factor of me having to change my style? And you know, that was impressive because that's the first time I had heard an actual interviewee mention it like that. And to this day, when I point that out, you know, he got a job. He's actually working in a middle school, successful teacher and all that. But that answer really is memorable to me because he's the only one that I've heard in all this time that has actually mentioned it like that or phrased it like that. Kickball coach, great guy, coaching now, working with social studies. You know, started with math, now with social studies. One of those generalists, but he's handling things. So that's going to happen, folks. How you perceive, you know, how you show the students what's going on, and you know, how you react to them. Yes, sir.
One of the things I also noticed from the video, it's almost like the students are afraid of him, but they don't really respect him.
There's fear, but no real respect. And the fear comes from that generation. Obviously, that generation was very docile. It was a lot more docile than now.
Well, back then the respect.
Corporal punishment.
Corporal punishment was around. That's true.
Like the respect came from the fear.
Yeah, respect came from the fear. So, and corporal punishment was around. I got to witness my first year teaching back in '96. My principal called me, I need you to come in, and I thought I was in trouble. I was 21, 22, and he called me and he didn't tell me why. Just go ahead and stand there. I'm like, okay, what's going on? He brought in a kid, and he says, I need you to be a witness. And I said, okay. And he just told him, lean forward, and whack him 3-4 times. I had,
Oh, that's when Texas brought it back.
It was in '96. It was in '96. I remember.
Yeah.
But that was I never witnessed. I mean, I was a good kid. I was one of those good kids. So I never witnessed paddlings or getting paddled. So as a teacher, 21, 22 years old, witnessing it, it was a little bit unnerving. But I thought, and the funny thing is, the kid was fine. I think I was more shaken than the kid. I was like,
Probably used to it.
I was a little bit, but he was fine. He like, okay. He almost told the principal, "Are we done?" And then he walked out, and the principal got on him, and the whole thing.
So we have a question
Yeah.
from the radio?
Oh, good. Rosa Maria Vida. That's okay. What if the kid takes forever in the bathroom? Is it okay to go and look for him? If they take forever in the classroom, my response would be obviously, I would send another
Student.
Trustworthy
preferably one of the
Safe-
good
safe
students,
students.
and say, hey, do me a favor, go check up and make sure everything's fine. And that's it, Teacher, hey, teacher needs you. Teacher wants to know what's going on because it might be a legitimate problem. It happens. Kids have issues, stomach issues. They don't want to say much sometimes. So it's good to send Laredo. Interesting question. But yes, it's good to send. Ideally, you have your set of students that you can trust, and you send them as your messengers. Give them a pass. Hey, go check up on this guy, just to get on the safe side. And also be mindful who's in the restroom. Okay. So thank you for pointing that out. Yes, the you can tell the fear is there, not necessarily the respect. What else did you notice?
The students, if they didn't feel comfortable, or it didn't look like they felt comfortable asking questions. So
Yeah.
how does he expect them to pass the test? If they're having problems, and like the fear was like, I don't even want to take this home.
No, they mentioned they were not comfortable asking. They were afraid of him. So if they're not asking, they're not learning.
Yeah,
Simple
he
as
told
that.
them- He told them to correctly solve the problems they got wrong.
Mhm.
It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
They don't know why
They don't know what they did
Yeah,
wrong.
it's like that Saturday Night Live skit where the comedians he mentioned they had to fix some sort of law, and his take on that was there's a two-step process: fix it, and that was the process. Fix it. Well, how are the children or the students supposed to fix it if they don't know how to work with it? They had no, but he told them to fix it, right? Fix the problems you got wrong. Okay, how am I supposed to do that? So that's another issue. Are you giving them the tools? Obviously, they didn't understand the first time. What makes you think they're going to know how to do it now that you are on them and yelling at them, or I call it projecting your voice, but he was actually being very rude to them. Okay, there was something else. He himself didn't have a lot in the board to remind students of the instruction. I recall the board was pretty clean.
Yeah.
So there were no reminders, visuals to remind, to at least to show them samples of how to solve the problems. None of that. Okay. The desks were all in straight rows. Did you notice that? All in straight rows. So do you think that the students were allowed to talk and collaborate, or at least try to figure things out? Not really. I would have made an assumption that they would be talking too much to each other during the independent work. Okay. Leaving the classroom. He left the classroom. That happened to me one time. I was walking into a middle school, and I was walking into an ELA teacher, 7th grade, and she literally rushed by me and took off. And I went into the classroom, and I figured, okay, maybe she had to run somewhere. Okay, I happen to be there. I'll stay. The children cannot be left alone. 35 minutes later, she's still not back.
Wow.
And I'm like, so you kind of figure who's gonna be a good kiddo, or can you go find out where your teacher's at? Because I was going over some items. I was going over the story. Okay, what are you reading? Okay, we're reading this story. Okay, well let's do some reading. Let's have some questions, stuff like that. Well, it turns out that right before I got there, she had sent somebody to the office, or she had seen a child do something. So she went ahead and took the child to the office, and he took off in front of her. So she left 16 students alone to take one student to the office. You see the problem there?
What grade level?
7th grade. I just happened to be walking in as she was walking out. She didn't tell me that she was going to take the child to the office. She just took off. So what would have happened if I hadn't been there? They pretty much would have been on their own, or somebody else would have dropped in or something. But see, that's the kind of things you have to keep in mind. If you have 16, 17 students, you cannot, if you need help, there's a button. Every classroom has a button. Call the office. If it's that important that you need some assistance, they'll send someone. Either an aide, a security officer, whoever's available. An AP might be passing by, an administrator might be passing by. I just happened to be passing by, and I didn't belong to that school. I was visiting. But I stuck around. I figured, but when I saw 35 minutes, like, okay. So Mr. Grimes left to the office, right? He got called?
You see, he just stepped out.
He just stepped out. And then he was all surprised that they were acting up. Okay. Please don't step out of the room.
When there's an emergency situation, like for instance, you haven't gone to the restroom all morning and you just absolutely have to go.
The teacher?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're the teacher and you absolutely have to go, I mean, what would be the procedure there?
Press the button.
When you call your neighbor, I usually call my neighbor and teach her.
That's another thing.
I leave the door open, and she leaves the door open, and she kind of just mediates between both. And then what I do before that is, like, if anybody acts up, I get like a trust student. I say if anyone's not doing what they're supposed to, because everybody knows what they're doing. So if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, I'll tell the trust student just write their name on the board.
And in third, in third grade, they still have the honor system, and the good kids are good kids, no matter what. But yeah, that is also a practice that you say, hey, I need to go, and the other teacher will be, okay, guys, get to, let me. They're working, and then okay, you guys okay? Okay, good. You guys okay? And you help each other like that.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, might as well get used to it. Bladder control is an issue. You make sure, because it will come up.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty good about making sure I had my timing during lunch and in the after school.
Yeah, of course.
But there's occasions when you have like a stomach ache or something, and there's no way to control that.
It happens. Or sometimes you're just not feeling well. It happens. Sometimes teachers go to work sick. I remember having I was gonna get my wisdom teeth removed, and I had to get some medicine, and I felt terrible and had to run out of the classroom. And on the way out, I told my buddy to watch my class. It happens. Emergencies do happen. But that's why if you're in an open campus, you try to get your neighbor. If you're in a closed campus, same thing. But just be mindful that emergencies will happen. So you need to have your colleagues help you out, and of course vice versa. Okay. But yeah, leaving the classroom like that, folks. No, definitely. Always think student safety. You're still managing the class, but you can already anticipate. In the morning, you're going to have a visitor. Or you're not feeling well. We've had people that tell us, just FYI, I'm not feeling well. I'm going to have to run out of the classroom. The teachers will come to the office and let us know. We've had teachers that tell the nurse, hey, I might have to visit you during the day. I'm not feeling well. But they still go to work. And as teachers, you do get certain personal days available in your contract. Even as professionals, you get personal days. And you try to use them wisely, but things happen. Okay? What else did you notice?
He just wasn't enthusiastic of what he was teaching.
Did you feel that he loved math?
No.
Didn't even seem like he liked teaching.
He didn't feel like either.
Yeah. He didn't feel like teaching? Yeah.
He didn't want to be there.
There's several versions or several types of teachers, folks. There's teachers that love to teach. They were born to be teachers. And also there's people that learned to become teachers. It all depends. But ultimately, you do have to enjoy this career, because it is a career. It is not a job. Teaching is a career. I've done it for 22 years. I did my classroom instruction, but then I moved on into administration, and my teaching now involves adults. I teach teachers how to become better teachers, and I teach administrators how to work with data and assessments. That's my job. So they're my students now, but ultimately that will impact the students, because they have to go back and work with the students, and I enjoy that. So yes, people ask me, what do you do? Well, I'm an educator. Okay, well, what grade do you teach? Well, I work with adults. I work with teachers and administrators, and I do this and that. And sometimes I notice they'll tell me, well, you're not really a teacher. I am a teacher. I consider myself a teacher. It's just that my students are older, and my students are teachers and administrators. But that goes back to, it is a career. You know, yes, he was all dressed up, and that's fine. You know, that's wonderful with the tie and all that. And you find teachers that actually dress up, and that's fine too. But ultimately, folks, it does, what works is, are you being effective? Are you planning accordingly? Are you teaching efficiently? Are you teaching so that students are learning? Have you ever heard the statement, well, I taught it, they didn't learn it? Have you ever heard that statement? I still hear it every so often. Well, the way you're evaluated nowadays, that doesn't work. You can put you can put on a show and all that. And I remember I had teachers and even colleagues that would put on a show the day of the evaluation, everything's fine, everybody's answering, raising their hands. So the teacher was putting on a show, but ultimately, when the teacher did the check for understanding, when the teacher did the independent practice, the kids may or may not have known what to do. So ultimately, your evaluation is, did the students learn it? That's really what your evaluation is about. Yes, it's you're evaluating you, but how impactful you were. Okay? When you walk out of these sessions, my goal is to have you thinking like, oh, okay, I need to worry about that. I need to have that in mind. I need to check out that website. I can use this little fish thing. You know, that's our goal. So after 30 sessions of this, you have so much information that your regular route people didn't get. I'm a regular route, and what that means is I went to 4 years of college to become a teacher. I knew I loved it because, you know, even in school, I was a kid, oh yeah, this is how you do it. I was that kid. I enjoy teaching. Even nowadays, people catch me at Best Buy, like, hey, can you help me? Sure, what do you need help with? You know, you have it in you. You know, you have it in you. Well, think of it that way. You'll start seeing things at the store. Oh, I can use that for my instruction. You'll start talking to people like, oh yeah, this is how you do it. Let me show you. So you are the educator. You are a teacher. Okay, that's your mode. Okay, I know. I saw the words LVN on your scrub.
Yes.
So you're a medical person.
Yes.
But now you're sharing that knowledge. You're making them think like that.
Yes.
So see, that's the whole point. You're sharing all this knowledge, and your hope is that they keep it, that they don't just forget about it and, you know, okay, take off the scrubs and, you know. So your career, guys, is going to be very important for you to, you know, accept that and be the model that you're supposed to be. Okay. So any others before I touch on this and we move on? Anything else that you saw in the classroom? And like I said, there were a lot of things. Okay, the throwing of paper, the rows, just the statements he was saying, the statements the students were commenting on. Okay, the fact that he said, "I'm going to make an example out of you."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's almost.
That's like a no-no now.
That sounds like a threat, straight up threat. I had a parent that came over and says, "Mr. Rivera, this teacher threatened my child." You know, okay, Friday afternoon. Okay, tell me about it.
Oh my God.
Friday afternoon. Well, you know, yesterday my son got home and he told me that the teacher called him out and was getting after him outside the classroom right outside the door and said, and the teacher told my son that that when he was younger, he had tough friends and, you know, try to intimidate my son. So the teacher, after the whole investigation, the teacher, which was one of those coach type teachers, life lesson kind of guy, you know, one of those great people, great teacher also, mathematics. What he had done was that he took the student out because the student was acting up and the student had gone through something personal. Teacher took him outside and said, "Look, I don't know what you're going through. I have an idea. I just need you to understand this. You're a smart kid. You know what you're doing here. Be careful about acting tough because I know tough people," or something to that effect. He made it a life lesson. Well, the student went and told the mom, well, he said he knew tough people and it felt like a threat. The mother shows up that it felt like a threat. You know, the police got involved. The district police got involved because the mother went to the police. So you see that life lesson that he was trying to teach him, that discussion as a man to a younger man to try to make him understand, turned on him.
Backfire.
It did. It backfired. And I'm sure you had a few of those discussions with a few of your customers.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sure you did, because I remember witnessing some police officers that would talk to the young men or even the ladies and just be very frank with them about the realities of their actions. This student happened to go to mom, and mom happened to go to the police department. So yes, you know, it's good that those life lessons happen, because if they don't get it from that person, they might not get it. There was no dad. So he wasn't going to get it from dad, and obviously he wasn't going to get it from mom. So the teacher was trying to help him out, and it backfired on him. I share this with you because, you know, not to make you feel like, oh, I can't talk to a kid and all that, but always be mindful that it can be turned around. It can be perceived as something negative, okay? He did a good thing. He didn't humiliate the guy in front of the other students. That would have been worse, because he would have added, well, he humiliated me, you know. But for that one student that made a little stink out of that situation, there were hundreds that really appreciate that teacher. And when the mother came in and I said, you know, he's an excellent teacher, I know because I've seen him teach. He's an excellent coach because he has a high-performing group. His athletes, his students will do anything for him. For him. They'll do it for him. So I'm very surprised about this. And as an administrator, I have to back up the teacher. Do I have to conduct an investigation? Yeah. Don't ever feel like, oh, they're conducting an investigation, they don't believe in me. That's separate. The investigation had to take place. But also the fact that, you know, I had to tell the parent, he's one of our best teachers. He, you know, successful person, great with the students, motivates them. I still had to conduct the investigation because the mother had already gone to the police department. The investigator came over and said, no. We already talked to the teacher, we already talked to the student, we talked to the mom. There's nothing here. But the teacher, for a couple of days, felt bummed out.
Like reevaluate.
Yeah, you start thinking, man, I can't talk to the kids. So, you know, we had to bring him back and say, end up the police house. No, you're fine, ma'am. There's nothing here. That, you know, we just clarified it. It was all cleared up. But that brought the teacher's morale down. So we had to build it up again. Successful teacher, like I said, but that does happen. Be mindful of that. Okay, be mindful of that. Discipline him. You know, if you have a witness, even better. If you can have a witness, a counselor or something, it's even better. But just be aware that some people perceive things differently than how you're presenting them. Okay, I don't know what this one's about. Becoming buddies instead of teacher. I don't think he was even trying to be a buddy.
No.
So I don't know where that came from. Not being organized, not being consistent in the classroom. Mr. Grimes approaches students with poor math grades and a very negative attitude. He had students work out the problems that they had incorrect. He disciplined students in front of the entire class and made him feel uncomfortable and embarrassed. Criticized the classroom without any kind of positive reinforcement. Condescending tone and provocative tone when speaking to class. Provocative. Was that Laredo? Provocative tone?
The same basket as
I don't know. I'm just wondering where that came from.
It's just provocative.
It does say provocative.
Yeah, it doesn't say that.
Provoking them, maybe? or like,
It's a
you know,
good.
Yeah, kind of like.
yeah. Criticize classroom without any kind of positive reinforcement, condescending, okay. Provocative discipline, behavior students in front of class, and use mass punishment.
Like saying it in a way so they can reply or something.
Like, you know, like picking on them and just trying to get them out. Provoking them? Okay. Okay. So that was the first half. Okay. I was expecting more answers, so I'm wondering so what I'm gonna do for next time, and see, lesson learned. Next time I'm gonna be asking for the person's name, so that we can, because we do want you to participate in these things, okay? We want to make sure that, plus you learn from this tool. This is something I've been keeping since 2014.
Yeah, looks like the majority did it in the summer.
Huh?
Looks like the majority did it in the summer.
Yes. I understand I'll tell John later. He's busy. So we're gonna watch the next half, okay? So we can wrap this up. And then I want you to point out exactly.
All right.
Well,
That's I've had in a long, long time.
This is hardly the way to win friends or influence people.
You don't know what the word study means. You haven't the slightest idea.
That's the same one.
Might not be a bad idea to show them how.
Okay.
Yeah.
I tell you right now that unless you get over your lazy habit,
Kind of motivation. Now take this.
the good thing I caught you on it.
Some pleasant and valuable learning experiences had deteriorated into a series of disagreeable and injurious personal tensions. This is all wrong. Need any of these incidents have occurred at all?
Uses proportional amounts of ingredients to make a little cake, vice versa. Trouble with that last problem on ratio. Now, perhaps I didn't do a good job explaining ratio. Now, ratio is commonly used in everyday life. Mother uses it in the kitchen when she takes a recipe for a big cake, uses proportional amounts of ingredients to make a little cake, vice versa. But let's suppose the recipe calls for 8 cups of flour and 4 eggs. I want to make the cake half that size. How much would I use?
You need 4 cups of flour and 2 eggs.
That's right. You boys use it in the shop when you read a blueprint. As you know, blueprint merely a scale drawing of something that's usually larger. Suppose I had a blueprint of a bridge that's going to be 100 feet wide. But on this drawing, the bridge is only 10 inches wide. Now, how many feet would each inch represent?
10 feet.
That's right. Now, that's ratio. Now, let's see where we made our mistakes. The problem was this. What is the ratio between 4.5 yards and 1.5 feet? Now, you were terribly 4.5 and 1.5, said the answer was 3. That's where you fell into a trap. What you forgot was that before you can divide, you have to reduce all units of measurement to the same unit. Now, what's the unit here?
Feet?
That's right.
By golly, I sure fell for that one.
First of all, let's change 4.5 yards into feet. That gives us 13.5 feet. And now we can divide 13.5 feet by 1.5 feet. The right answer is 9.
Wow, I see where I made my mistake.
Now, I want you to look over your papers very carefully and see where you made your mistakes. I'll come down the aisles, and if there are any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Yes?
No, Dr. Reed.
All right, thank you. I have to leave for a few moments. On page 15 of your books, the first 3 problems are exactly like number 1 on the test. First, do as many as you can until I get back.
I get the idea now. I sure messed up my test paper. I'm glad he's going over these questions. I'd never make head or tail out of them otherwise. You know, I'm beginning to get some sense out of this.
I hope I do better next time. I'd hate to bring another paper like this home. The way he explains it doesn't seem too hard.
Oh, come on, cut it out. I want to do these problems.
Oh, let's have some fun while Mr. Grimes is out. Who wants to do these old problems anyway?
Ron sure caught maniac. All kinds of crooked eggs.
That's more like it. Now you're getting it. Let's see if you can do the next one.
Classroom control and learning efficiency are products of good teaching. Learning must be made meaningful. Interest in work for which learners see a purpose provides its own.
Okay, so obviously, different perspective on this one. And right here, we're gonna scoot over to this side. Okay. It's on this side right here. Okay. So let's see, Mr. Grimes explained the test in details so students could understand. Mr. Grimes did not yell or scream to the student who was misbehaving and by throwing the apple across the classroom. Mr. Grimes did not punish the students for not passing the test but helped them comprehend the lesson. He was being patient, clear, and concise with the instruction. The students picked up on a good body language. Being friendly, not scolding the kids all the time, gave the students a reason to want to learn. When it came to discipline, he did it in a calm and friendly manner. He played the situation calmly by setting the strong something. Uses empathy to try and get a better grasp of what is that the students have problems with. Your calm demeanor helps because the way you react, students are going to feed on that. If you, have you ever had a child that falls in front of you and they don't start crying until you go like, and then they start crying?
Yes.
Okay, have you ever tried not reacting?
Yes.
Yes.
They're
They
usually
don't-
calmer.
yeah, they
Oh,
don't freak
okay,
out.
go ahead and get up. Everything's fine. But because you reacted in that sense, oh, I'm hurt. Ow, ow. After the fact that but if you hadn't reacted, and I tried it with my own children, I was just, I love trying things out with my children. And I wouldn't react. And I would say, oh, you're fine. Come on, let's go. We gotta go to the store or something. So they would just brush it off or shake it off and then move on. But I've seen it a lot. How you react, they feed off of. I've had students in second, third grade that fall off the chair, literally, boom. They were on the edge of the desk and they just slipped off. And everybody turns and people laugh. You're okay. Are you okay? Nothing hurt? Okay, good. Get back on the chair. So that helps because your calm demeanor helps the students. Now, is it okay to get excited about things? Yeah, it's always good to get excited about certain things, and maybe a video or some event that's happening. They need to see that human side. But by the same token, you're modeling the behavior of calmness. You're modeling the behavior of focus. One of my graduate professors always told me, as an administrator, when you're walking down the hallway, make sure you're walking calmly because the teachers are going to be watching you. And if the teacher's like, oh, okay, principal's upset, principal's freaking out, something's going on because the principal's freaking out. The teachers feed off of that. So as an administrator, we have to maintain, calmness and work with whatever situation. And we do get a variety of situations, upset parents, student gets hurt. I was in the school this morning and it's like, all of a sudden they announced code red. So I turned to the dean of instruction, what's a code red? Oh, and she just, we got a runner. Okay. So the principal calmly stepped out, went to talk to somebody, handled the situation, calmly walked back in, everything was fine. There was a runner, but it didn't become a big dramatic situation, I'm sure they found the child because, it happens, and especially in elementaries, you got little runners and it happens. He explains again to students about the problems that are wrong. He has a friendly attitude. He does not yell at the students. Those are the obvious things. What else did you notice about the way he was explaining this time? What else did he do?
Show interest.
He showed interest. He actually showed interest in his students and their performance. He actually cared. One statement I heard today that I really liked was when you're talking to a student and you say, this is your grade, you need to be here. that's one way of saying it. In other words, you're reading 30 words per minute, and you're supposed to be reading 60 words per minute. If you rephrase that to say, you're reading 30 words per minute, I'd like you to read 40 words per minute. So now you're connecting as their teacher, you're connecting with them and sharing the fact that you'd like for them to do it because there's a connection with you. Not that you're supposed to be here, because what message are you sending when you say you're supposed to be here?
You're not there.
Failure. You're sending the message of failure. Oh, okay. So I'm here, but I'm supposed to be here. That's failure right there. But if you say you're not there yet, I'd like you to be here, then that's a different message. You perceive it differently. There's a connection between you and the student, and that there's an expectation, but it also sends a message that you're willing to help them, that you want them to be there. Okay? How many of us would assume that all teachers want their students to succeed?
I would hope so.
I would hope so, right? I want all my students to get jobs in schools. I want to see you in schools. I mean, our program wants you all to get hired. And we run into you all and new teacher in service and trainings, and that's wonderful. I've run into a few. There's two past candidates in cohorts here that were my students as 5th graders. They were my students as little kids. So now they're becoming teachers. That was an eye-opener for me. And I loved it. I thought it was the coolest thing for them to become teachers and go through this program and me be their teacher again. So I share that with you because when you have students that are not performing, you also have to address them in a way that doesn't degrade them. The words you choose, and that was a nice eye-opener for me. The fact that you don't say you need to be over here, that statement right there automatically tells me, okay, so I guess I'm failing, I'm not being successful, versus I want you to be here. Okay, you see that the tone makes a difference. Mr. Grimes admitted that he probably did not do a very good job. He took responsibility, But then he started talking about his mom. What is it? Mother.
The recipe?
Mother's recipe. So he connected with the girls, and I'm sure a few men that cook, and then with the boys he used wood shop or something like that. So he was connecting with the students. Guys, a student will not learn from someone they don't like. I want you to remember that. A student will not learn from someone they don't like. Once you turn them off, okay? Once you turn them off, they will not want to learn from you. I experienced it here. I was talking about attire, and I was talking about presentation, and I just so happened to mention sandals, and a gentleman in one of the tables had sandals on, very laxed dress, and he took it offensively. And I was just it was a sample, an example I was sharing, but he wrote in the comments, he criticized my sandals, and I didn't. After that, I was turned off. Okay.
Wow.
So it happens even here. The examples I use, folks, I've experienced them or I've been made aware of them by colleagues. But just keep in mind, it's all so that you're aware of what's out there. Interview session, interview session. What's the first thing we see? When you walk through the door, we see how you're dressed. Some people have issues with tattoos, some people don't. Some people have issues with hairstyles, some people don't. But presentation, that's the first thing they see, folks, when you go into an interview. So just keep that in mind. Like I said, Mr. Grimes was all dressed up, but the first examples were not very good. He used real life experiences. When you're teaching folks and you're talking about classroom management, make sure you connect with the students because they have life experiences themselves. Okay, I shared with you about No, I don't want to use that one anymore, that marijuana example. But that was and I was back at that school today, so I went to the window and like, okay, this is where it happened. But when you connect with students and you value their experiences, they do have. Some students can fix cars. Some students can measure. Some students have helped their dad with cutting wood or measuring wood. An example I love to share is I was at a high school and this teacher was talking about a story about shrimping and it was a story about shrimping. I don't know what happened. And this girl in the front said, "Oh, my uncle's a shrimper, and I used to go with him, and we used to do this, and we shrimp at night," or something to that effect. She knew about that. She had experience in that area, and she was more than glad to share it. The teacher said, "Oh, okay, thank you very much." Kind of blew her off a little bit. When that could have been an excellent, you know what, thank you so much. I didn't know that. And you're going to run into students that know about certain topics that you don't know. It happens. You told me about the slide rule, that thing that was on the, okay. I thought you were talking about the thing you was holding.
That too?
That too, that's part of the slide? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I used to use it for like, all engineers would use it.
Engineering people, see?
For math calculations.
There you go. And to me, it's like, why not get a calculator? But that's a calculator?
No, I mean, they didn't have them back then.
Oh, okay.
So this is pre-calculator.
Yeah, and I'm thinking abacus, and
Abacus.
those things are still being used, right?
That has like the square roots, logarithms, and it has all bunch of stuff.
See, I find it interesting. I don't know what it is, but I find it interesting. But my math people, the math specialists at where I work, they would find all that, they keep everything.
My statistics teacher at the ETRGV still carries it.
Yes.
Like he just carries it for.
Wow. Yeah, see, that's
really
very memorable, very memorable. So see, all of you have you all have experiences. You all have experiences that you can connect to the students. Obviously, his mother had the recipe and he made that connection with his students to use recipes as a connection to teach math. With the boys' wood shop. So what connections can you have from your experience that will connect to the students' experiences? Okay? Is it time for a break? Well, he took a break. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back to continue with this because I do want you to understand about connections and how the students will benefit from them, and you too. Okay, Laredo, feel free to ask questions, and whoever typed up the provocative thing, there was no insult there. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. It caught my attention. Okay, Laredo, we'll see you in about 10 minutes. I was just at Rivera. I was visiting the ELA people at Rivera. So, yes, and actually I was first graduating class from Rivera, class of 91. So it's I feel.
One of my teachers graduated. My bad teachers graduated.
From Rivera?
Yeah. Probably. I like it.
Oh, it's good. It's well kept. I mean, it's a high school, but.
Did they fix the roof?
What?
Because I know it used to leak a lot when I was there.
I think all of them do.
No, the entire roof.
Oh, the entire one? No, I haven't seen any leaks over, and it rained not too long ago, so.
Well, that's better than Hannah. Hannah's known as the asbestos capital of the world.
Well, I'll tell you what, when it floods in the parking lot.
I saw that. Students lost their cars.
Huge dip.
Teachers lost their cars.
Yeah, that a couple of years ago when it was like really poor, there were people in cars.
It was.
Where the band practices, it's like really.
It's a big.
It's a crater.
Yes.
But the principal was being criticized because she didn't allow kids to go get their cars. Her thing, student safety. She wasn't going to risk the students getting hurt. So that was a good call. But of course, people think about the car more than think about their safety. But no, I heard about that, and I graduated from that school, and I like it.
I graduated from there as well.
Oh, class of 91.
05.
Oh, 05? Yeah. Oh, wow. 9, 14. Yeah. We were a class of 214 people. Very small.
I think when we started, I think we were around 680, and my graduating class was 365.
We had our 20-year class reunion, and we had a gentleman there, and he was just having a good time with us, and everybody was like, "Who's that guy?" And you know that guy? You know that? He was summer, one of those summer graduates, but he felt he was part of our class, and we welcomed him. We welcomed him, but we had no idea who he was. So it was kind of funny, but I mean, he still had a good time. He still jumped in the karaoke, That was good, that was good.
My application, so.
Let's see what she is. I think someone didn't watch the video. I was reading through the answers. I think someone didn't watch the video.
Yeah, some of them, I'm not exactly sure. Good eye contact, being organized. I guess
Well, one of the things that I noticed in the other one, it didn't seem like he had a lesson plan either. Where he was being real strict with them. He had them. It didn't seem like there was an actual lesson plan.
Actually.
Like he had something. He kind of just passed on the exams and told them just work on the topics.
that happens too. And, that there are, I can tell you, there are teachers right now that show up and like, yeah, let's go over some start questions. And that's it for the day. But, and it might look instructional, but it really wasn't part of a plan. It can be deceiving.
I had a professor in college where every day he would show up and he would ask the person in the front row, let me borrow your book, I want to see where we're at. He'd flip through it, see something, and he would write some writing stuff down.
I had a professor that would be writing the test that he would give us on his way to the class. He would be writing the test, and then when he got to class, the 5 questions, he would write them on the board.
Wow.
And each question required up to 2 pages or a page of writing. So that was the test. But he was writing it on the way to the class. And we caught him. We would actually see him writing so we would see him writing, and then when he got to the class, he would take out the same paper and be like, so it happens, even in a university.
Did anyone used to call you? They still do. They call me. They send me.
Speaking of student, you said a student doesn't like you, he's not gonna hire.
Yeah.
Dude, they still have like 17 grand to pay.
The only reason why he doesn't like me is because
I paid off one, and then it was 2,000.
And I've noticed that some of these kids that I run into,
is down to 17.
they have that's all they do. That's all their parents say to them.
And now I gotta pay off my credit card.
You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like it conflicts with them when they're at school because at school you can't do that. You're gonna hear no, you can't do that. No,
This
don't
thing
stop,
needs
you don't
Microsoft
misbehave.
Office,
Can't,
so you don't
stop
pay that
misbehaving,
off.
whatever, and don't like to hear the word no. You know.
How much is
They're not used to
It's
it.
$70
They don't know how to react, so they react.
He was struggling with his math today, like hard, like real hard. He didn't understand.
I got it for
He'd
free.
rather have struggled than to ask me to help him. And that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell. I was like, look, they work by keys.
Yeah, because they have the product keys.
But because I've gotten after
Unless you buy the one next to
set tracks,
3 computers, but that one's like $300.
Doesn't listen at times. It doesn't
Why
listen.
is it so expensive?
So I have to redirect them.
Yeah. And it's good
And
to
it's spreadsheet.
share with them. I will redirect you.
When I was in college, I used nothing but Excel.
I will also congratulate you or,
Because I did nothing but
show you my
statistics.
appreciation when you do.
So it was nothing
It goes
but
both ways.
Excel,
That way they
making
understand, okay, he's
macros,
tough, but he's fair.
and
Yeah.
Tough, but fair. I've heard that comment used before.
So did
Yeah,
you work on
he's tough, he's fair, and people respect that.
Okay, because there is
You know?
one thing that you
Because
have
at
to
least they
say
know that
on
it's
Google.
kind of funny to say that he gets on all the kids,
I
not
have
just
a
one.
presentation that I
He
gave
expects a
last
lot.
year.
You know,
I was wondering if
tough,
I
but
could
fair.
Like I have to
It's
watch
my
over
standard
the
procedures for
parents and kids.
presentation.
So what are they asking?
I'm not afraid to tell them.
Yeah, so what you're doing is that you're asking, this
I don't care your
you're
parents'
presenting a
work.
lesson.
I'm gonna treat you the same as I treat everybody else.
But you're using.
You're not
They're still
special.
students,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was like, you're that's not as special as another student that's here. I go, you guys are all equal, and I'm gonna treat you equal. So if you misbehave, you're gonna get the same punishment as everybody else. You know, just because your parents are here doesn't make it seem that you're above everything else. You know.
They get to
Last
stick around
Pokemon I
afterwards.
played was Red.
Yeah.
Sometimes they hear things and sometimes they see things.
they're releasing
But you're right,
things,
you know, they need to be held up to the same standard. You know, now, if the parent has a problem.
The ones after, right?
then that's the
I never
parent's
played
problem.
that. See, I remember Red,
But as a
Blue Red.
professional, and he
Because I
has
remember I used to play that on my
access,
Super Nintendo.
you know,
I never had a.
Why would you
I never
want
had
your
a
kid to act like that?
But I had that
You know, the
game.
little
That,
reader.
yeah, I had. What was it? The Super game. Like,
But I think after I had that
this
conversation,
Super
because I had to actually
cartridges,
like,
I
find
had
out
that,
the
and that's where I would play it.
I was like, I don't
Did it
care
have
if
the
it
other
works here. I really don't. Same as everybody else. You
Yeah.
know?
But like playing it again, like you see all the little problems with it. I was trying to catch one of the legendary players.
You took Breaker.
And you can actually.
Yes, I wasn't sure, what time is it?
It's all good.
7:15.
It's all
What
good.
time is it?
No, dude. It's so
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ahead of schedule. Okay, let me go, how many, do I have to leave?
What time to take a break? 10 on?
At 7:10.
7:10?
Yeah.
Okay, then you have 5 minutes.
Yeah. I thought that's what you were trying to signal me.
Oh, no, I was gonna make coffee.
Oh.
Because I slept at like 4 in the morning to HR.
Is Laredo on? Can they hear this? Okay.
So you have that letter from his
Oh,
father
right. I slept at 4 and I woke up like 10.
when you first.
Oh, wow. Yeah, 4 hours of sleep, that's tough. That's tough.
Get off your game.
So, but have you tested?
The music is like the best.
That's why, and that's why you got that letter about the
Surprisingly.
because it's
Okay, so that's, those are for them too, and these are for you too. Because as a, you know, you're gonna collaborate with him to review them and then give feedback.
I had a question. At my end of the year review, my principal told me that I needed to work specifically on classroom. I was curious as to, I know one of the paperworks was based on so I used some of the steps that he.
Because I can know, I know if I go on Thursdays to the library, I can knock on like 4 pieces.
Because I know that, like, I was able to, it was a class of 64 every 45 minutes. So I was able to keep
64 kids?
Yes.
Is it
It was a computer.
64 kids and you by yourself? Okay.
No, that's the way that it's structured in all.
That's a problem right there. That's part of this, that's a fact.
Okay. I know that like from the beginning of the year until about maybe like November, I was able to have pretty good control and grasp of the students. But then afterwards, it kind of. Yeah, and one of the things that they told me to work on is because of the consistency. I know that's after that is when you start having more discipline problems. You start having. The case was that the students would not go to the restroom during PE. They would transition from PE to my class. And then when they were in my class, I had 30, 40 hands go up at the same time saying so there was a lot more accidents, a lot more discipline problems. The work itself wasn't as strong as it could have been. So is there something that I could recommend?
Well, definitely, I would have to start by talking to the coaches. He can help you.
I talked with the PE coaches, I talked with some of the parents, and I spoke with the nurse. She spent time, came by and talked with, it was specifically with my first and second graders, so she took time out of her day to come and lecture and tell them, this is what's going to happen, this is what's happening.
64 second graders?
It was a mix. I had we have three days set up. It was A, B, and C. On A days, I had A days was it started with first grade for 45 minutes, and then transitioned to fourth and fifth. So I had 32, and then on B days it was fourth and fifth, 32, and then second, third.
And you by yourself in that room?
I'll be up there.
I mean, if you actually want to look at it, there's not 64 kids in that room. It was 4 rooms put together, so it was there was 32 by myself, and then in the next room was 32, but each one of those 32 had one
Still
teacher.
not appropriate. I mean,
It was three teachers for 138 kids, or 128 kids.
yeah, that's still questionable. I mean, to be honest, that's a lot of kids for 3 teachers.
One class. And a half a portable. So I had, when I first.
You're your boss.
When I first started, I had 20 desks and 30 students.
Yeah.
So I was like, do
That's-
the math.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
Either I do students or I gain desks.
Well, I went to talk to the principal, I'm like, man, no offense or anything, I said, but I have 20 desks and 30 students, I'm not gonna do the math. And she's like, well, we don't have any more desks. And I said, well, then you know what, take the desks out and give me
Yeah, they only give 5 more minutes up to you.
Okay.
It's 7:20 already.
Oh, I think you're gonna show me something.
Yeah, I had.
Oh, no, it's 7:20.
Yeah, oh, no, no.
64 computers, my largest house was 7.
Okay, we're gonna come back.
No, it
Sorry,
wasn't. It was
7:20.
No, I know, but I think.
So we were discussing the positive aspects, and I took the break early, so I gotta wrap it up early. We were discussing the positive aspects of Mr. Grimes, and I also wanted to point out that we talked about his different attitude, a little bit of self-reflection, the students responding better. Anything else to wrap up that? The partial blame he took, the assignment changed. Did you notice the assignment? Because he showed them a sample of what he wanted, now he could say, okay, the first 3 are the same. That way, at least the students were a little bit more comfortable with it. Not punishing the whole class was another factor. You're going to have situations where somebody acts up. Why would you punish the whole class? I mean, I was sharing with the gentleman that we all know a teacher that's been known as tough but fair. And a lot of us respect that. I respect that. I don't have a problem with somebody being tough so long as you're fair. If you're gonna get after people for doing something, then everybody gets it for that same action. Okay? By the same token, you also have to be showing appreciation and showing how you work with the students. I remember having teachers in a middle school school that they had some superstars that would not work for anyone else, but they would work for that teacher because she showed them a lot of caring. Yeah, she had sweets for them and things like that. And in middle school, they'll do anything for Jolly Ranchers.
Yeah.
It happens. I've seen high school teachers. You answer the question, here you go, here's a Jolly Rancher. Something as simple as that. Obviously you don't want the cafeteria people to hear you say that because of minimal food of minimal nutritional value situation. But the students connect with those teachers. And I mentioned connections earlier, folks. You need to also work with your students and make those connections so that they know, yes, you're in charge, you're the model, but you also have to be able to at least have them understand that you understand them. Some of them might tell you, sir, I had a rough night last night, dad came in drunk, this happened. And it's like, okay, just take a seat, try to do your work, and you're not gonna be on him for different, but at least you're understanding, and they'll remember that. Remember what I said earlier? Students will not learn from someone they don't like. That happens, folks, and word spreads. Oh no, he was a real jerk, and he did this and he did that, or even something will happen, but as long as you want to be careful by the same token that they like you too much, there's teachers now. A 21-year-old can be teaching an 18-year-old in a high school. If you think about it, and some of those 21-year-old students that just graduated and just became teachers, I met one that was a little thing. I thought she was a student, and she was a teacher. It happens. So if I'm thinking she's a teacher, or the student, what are the students thinking? Okay, fortunately, she was a tough cookie. And man, she wouldn't, she was tough, but she was fair, and she was able to handle that. But her personality was very good. She was very professional. She was 21-year-old, and you have 18-year-old guys that really liked her, but she was very clear. And she avoided incidents, she avoided situations. She dressed appropriately, knowing that the young boys liked her, okay? So she kept it very professional. So just keep in mind, yes, you have to make connections with the students, but you want to be careful. Whenever I ask you all questions, I do it on purpose. It's like, you know, like the gentleman works at a high school where I graduated from. I was the first graduating class from that high school. So right off the bat, you know, I like that. I remember that, okay? You worked as a police officer with middle schools. I remember working with police officers in middle school and what they have to deal with, okay? I remember working with art people and third graders.
Well,
Okay.
what first graduating class from what school?
91, Rivera.
I graduated with my sister. Yvonne Rincones. Yvonne Rincones.
I'm sure I gotta see I'm a visual person. I'm terrible with names, but I'm sure because it was a class of 214 students, very small class. So you see, just by asking questions, I'm already making certain connections with several of you, and that way when I bring up examples, you know, you understand, or like, oh, okay, you know, it makes sense to you. So same thing with your students, get those connections going. He used the recipe and he used the wood shop, that's fine. If that works for you, that's fine. Some of you might use movies. With my students, I used to use a lot of movies. Since I had children of my own, I saw all the Disney movies. I saw all the sci-fi movies. I'm a Trekkie and I'm a Star Wars fan. So guess what I use? You know, I use a lot of examples when I'm teaching, or when I was teaching, I would use a lot of examples from movies. I'm a movie buff. So that helps me. Some of you might, you know, obviously you have a lot of stories, you know, that you can't share too many details, but get to the point, you know. And the guys are going to connect with that. They're going to say, yeah, you know, he knows what he's talking about because he's lived it, okay? Your students connect with you because you're a licensed vocational nurse. So you have lived it, experienced it, you know, in the real world. And now you bring that knowledge to them. They respect that, okay? So ask yourselves, what connection are you going to make with your students? Because once you establish those, then they know they can trust you, they know they can learn from you, and they'll be more successful, okay? And yet we're talking about classroom management, and I'm talking about teaching and planning and instruction. You see how they go hand in hand? We have teachers like, oh, they don't behave. Well, are you really teaching, or are you just shooting from the hip? There's teachers that would walk into a classroom and, what are we gonna do today? I was sharing with a gentleman that I had a college professor that on his way to the classroom, he would write out the test on his way to the classroom. And then when he got to the classroom, he would put whatever he wrote on the paper, he would write it on the board, and that was our test. And we knew it, but we weren't gonna say anything. So what kind of planning did that take, okay? So this form, folks, like I said, Google Forms are wonderful. You can use them in the classroom for instruction, for a little survey, for a little quiz, a test, anything like that. You can design your own Google form and just have the students answer on their phone, on their tablets, on their, you know, whatever the device they might have. And you can use it instructionally. A lot of districts nowadays are BYOD, bring your own device. So you can just tell them, take out your device. Oh, and they might say, are you sure? Yeah, we're gonna use it instructionally, okay? So, a few other points I wanted to touch on. Okay, you all read the definition of the classroom management, the process, and how you're supposed to establish, you know, your rules. Okay, you've all heard, don't smile till Christmas. I've actually heard that.
Yep.
You know, it's not about that. I know Christmas is a great time, everybody's happy, but you can be approachable and still be serious. You know, some people tell me you're not very perky. I'm like, it's okay. I don't have to be perky, but I'm friendly and I'm approachable. People ask questions. I travel the district. I get along with all, you know, with deans and principals and, you know, pretty much everybody. But I'm a serious person. But I still have to socialize and work with different people. So this thing about don't smile till Christmas, that works for some people apparently. But just be mindful that the students they're not going to trust you if you don't even smile. Okay, make an effort of that. And the other side of that coin is trying to become their buddies. You know, some young teachers make the mistake that they, you know, they try to get along a little bit too much with the students. Sarcasm, folks, I'm going to tell you right now, you open up that can of worms, the students are going to take advantage of that. Because once you use sarcasm with the students, they will use it with you. And you're gonna lose that argument. If it ever becomes an issue, you're gonna lose because you're the adult. You're supposed to model the behavior. So once you throw the sarcasm at one of those guys that is acting out, and he throws it back at you, and you have a discussion, yes, you can send him to the office, but he's gonna bring up the fact that you use sarcasm. So be very mindful about that, okay? But you're not their friend. You're their teacher. You're their role model. You're their mentor maybe, but you're not their buddy. I had a friend of mine that was teaching high school, and she told me, Carlos, I had to stop going to this club. I go, and we were young teachers. I go, why? Because my students were asking me to dance. Her high school students were asking her to go dancing, and she had to stop because she realized, okay, I'm a young teacher, she was 22, they were 18, and she said, can't have that. So she had to change her style. She had to show them that she was the role model and she was their teacher. And she stopped going, and well, that was that. Okay? You're gonna, body language, folks, how you present yourself, the eye contact you make, the tone of your voice. Have you all done classroom management too? The module? The resources? Did you see the audios I put in there? Did you hear them? The audios, the tone of voice you're using makes a difference. I had a situation at a school that will remain nameless where I had to talk to a teacher, and I said, did you really tell the student to shut up? And she goes, no, I said, will you shut up? And I go, well, that's the same thing. No, it isn't. I go, no, really it is.
Yes.
But, I mean, in nowadays, if you watch a lot of shows, it may not seem like a big deal, but it was a big deal to that student, and it became a big deal with that parent.
Especially if it's elementary.
It was actually high school, but I know in elementary that's a bad word. That's a bad word in elementary. The S word, the other S word. But I can tell you right now, I have personally been made aware of certain comments made by high school teachers because the teacher feels very comfortable saying certain things, and even told the students, and don't be telling your parents that I said this. Well, that's
it's like telling them to say it.
Yeah, why say it in the first place? We are role models. They hear everything, and yes, sometimes we are human. People make mistakes. People say things. But how you present yourself, even your body language, makes a difference. Eye contact with students. Gentlemen, make sure you keep your eyes on, be careful about wandering eyes. It happens. You have high school young ladies, and sometimes they don't dress appropriately. And they will be more than glad to mention, well, he was looking at me. It happens. It happens. So, eye contact is important. Always keeping the respectful demeanor. Always making sure that, that everything is out in the open. You would never keep a student alone in a classroom. Oh, sir, I need to talk with you. The door better be open, and you better be by the door, and, just making sure that it's very obvious that it's a discussion. If possible, walk out. I had to do that with a teacher one time. I had a PE teacher. I had a PE teacher that would dress for the part, and she walked into my office and closed the door. And as she was talking, I go, "Oh, really? Okay." I walked over to the door and opened the door, because I didn't want any trouble. It was an uncomfortable situation for me. So always be mindful of that. How you present yourself, what kind of body language you use, the tone. And I'm not talking necessarily aggressive tone, but it could be a flirtatious tone. There are people that can use a flirt or a joking, tone that might be misperceived. Be very mindful of that. Okay. Any, do you all have any examples of something you witnessed? Body language, tone, things like that. Yes, sir.
Oh, I was gonna mention the first year teacher.
First year teacher?
Yes, when I was a sophomore, I had a first year teacher, and the buddy thing was very apparent.
Very, okay.
Yeah, so there was a couple of students that would see him as his buddy and talk to him that way, and some students actually got in trouble
Mhm.
because the teacher realized, you know, we're already at this point, it's too late. He tried, you know,
Yeah.
cutting the cord or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
and the kids got in trouble for it.
They got in trouble for
Yeah,
it?
they
As
got
in-
in trouble because they started joking at a manner
Yes.
where it was affecting other
Yes.
students. So the teacher realized that, and
Mhm.
you know, luckily the students didn't speak up on what was going on the teacher's behalf. Because
Yes.
I'm sure he would have gotten in trouble.
Yes.
But you know, that was up to.
That's a very good example. You witnessed it, and you weren't part of it, but you would see it and like,
Yes.
okay, what's going on here? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Also,
Appreciate it.
a first year teacher. I used to share a room with him because I would have a detention, and he would have like short tutorials with a few of his kids. So he was also like a buddy with them. What they would do is that they would go in and they were. I'm assuming they thought they were really close with him. They'd start drawing on his desk with like Sharpies.
Oh.
And I know he was like what he would do is he'd be working on his computer and he'd be surrounded by like freshman and sophomore female students, and they started messing with his hair. So I mean the thing is I was there and I had my students that were in there.
Yeah.
So it was.
So now you weren't comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't seen him since. I'm assuming he may have fixed the behavior because I know right after that happened, I told him we set up a conference with one of the APIs because of that. Because obviously there were 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students that were there watching that. And maybe they weren't comfortable with that. So parents coming in and out, you know, they're going to see that.
Oh yeah.
It
can be perceived by anyone. I mean, if I saw a teacher being a student touching a teacher's hair, I'd be like,
they were putting like bobby pins in his hair.
okay.
So I don't know what the deal was.
Yeah, but you see how, and because I've done the code of ethics before, you know, common sense is not very common to some people. You know, it goes out the window because they start making choices. That's a choice. He's allowing that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a choice. Yes, ma'am.
Right
Thank you,
now,
Sharon.
I have a situation. I'm not going to the school or anything.
No
But
names.
it's a teacher that, older teacher, and he's a law enforcement teacher. And he likes to talk about his young 21-year-old girlfriend to his class. And I think that's very appropriate. And since
Very
last year.
inappropriate?
Yeah, I think it's very inappropriate because of the comments that he makes. And he's got young ladies. You're talking about high school, you know. And I know that this issue has been going on since last year. And so I've been trying to, you know, stay calm and, you know, give him, I did go meet him and we did talk to him and so he continues this year, school just started. So he just makes the student that I talk to, makes her uncomfortable. You know, so I talk to her and I tell her, you know, go tell him that, you know, it's inappropriate for him to be making those kind of comments. She knows like that he's divorced I don't know how many times, has a 21-year-old girlfriend and has a 24-year-old daughter that he talks about and how they get along and, you know, and he likes young women. It's just so inappropriate, you know. And once again, I go back to how does the school allow that to happen? Because I know that there's been situations where they've gone to talk to the school, you know, about him already, and he came back this year, so, you know.
Makes you wonder what exactly was done, or if anything was done about it. Was there a discussion with him? Was there not? I mean,
Exactly.
But let's go back to the root of the issue. It is inappropriate. I mean, it's his personal life, obviously.
Exactly.
They're adults, but it's still inappropriate to be sharing that type of information in your role as a teacher.
Right.
It's just inappropriate.
Right.
But that's a choice he's making, and that choice could impact him you know, certification, job. I mean, it's not worth it, folks.
And it goes back to not just the code and ethics being learned
Yes.
by the teachers and the students, but as a parent, you know, we need to know what, because that's my research as far as, you know, what can be done, you know, about it. I don't mean ill will to the guy. I you know, if he feels comfortable, maybe he doesn't even know that what he's doing is causing discomfort to the students. I don't know. But I'm researching as to how far I can go and how far I can, what can I request the school to do about it, you know?
Well, I mean,
change the
as a
student.
parent,
Right.
my advice to people, and for some reason, people shy away from this, put it in writing. You know, I always tell people, if you feel something is inappropriate, if you feel you've been wronged, if you feel strongly enough about something, address it in writing, because now it's formal. Now
Teachers
it's
get written up for a lot less, so.
now it's official. You know, I've had to email certain, I use my Google account when I email my children's teachers, because I don't like to have my signature as an employee of the district. I do it for my personal email because I'm acting as a parent, and I do it on purpose. And I'll share a question, or I'll ask a question, or I'll show a concern, or something like that. But it's in writing, because once you put it in writing, it's more official. Just talking about it, you know, sometimes people get blown off. Sometimes people are like, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll deal with it. So and for some reason, I've had individuals tell me, oh, but I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, and if you feel it's wrong, okay, put it in writing. If you feel you've been wronged, put it in writing. Okay? There's nothing wrong with an email. I email every single day, questions, concerns, every single day, folks. My phone has a lot of emails. And the whole point is you're documenting. It did happen. And I'm asking, or I'm bringing it up. But the verbal thing, it's not as effective. It really isn't as effective. So that would be my advice to anyone who has a concern, you know, they feel that something's inappropriate. And I've had to address a few myself. So I totally understand as a parent, you want to, you know, you want it to be addressed because it is inappropriate. You were gonna share? Thank you, ma'am, for sharing.
Yeah, that brings up a situation where I was in, and it shocked me, and I never thought it would happen to me. But I was investigating a situation, and the female student was frank about it, and apparently she was attracted to men in uniform. And I felt very uncomfortable, and I made sure that there was always a staff member in the room because she made it real obvious. Real obvious. That she was attracted to men in uniform.
Yeah, so you realized it, and to cover yourself, protect yourself, have to have a witness, or you know, deal with it appropriately. You know, yet you may have other individuals that take it as a big compliment, and the problem is you're in an authority figure position. You can't do that. You can't take it as a compliment. It is a factor, but you have to address it accordingly. You know, you know, you might have, some of you that are in high school, you might have some of the young ladies. Let's say you help them out with an assignment, or you get them out of a bind or something. You might have some of those young ladies trying to, you know, give you a hug or you know, or something. It happens, folks. I had a middle school, we had a situation with a young girl, and I helped her by meeting with her mother, and we cleared up a misunderstanding and all that. And in the hallway, she was like, oh, Mr. Olvera, thank you so much. And she went like this. And when she went like this, I you know, her hand was up here. So I just went like this, you're welcome, you know, and I just caught her hand, and I did it on purpose. I was not gonna get a hug from that girl. You know, I didn't wanna seem disrespectful, but at the same time, I had to maintain that, you know, professionalism. And my secretary was laughing because she's like, man, you reacted quick. I go, I have to be very careful, you know, because there was nothing wrong. There was no ill intent, but why would I want to risk it? Perception, guys, very interesting. Perception. The door stays open. Stand by the door. Always be, you know, hands, you know, visible, things like that. Always be very aware of that. Okay. Any other examples? these are great examples, by the way, and, you know, like I said, people make bad choices. Good people make bad choices. I've done this for 22 years, and my philosophy on choices, guys, pretend your significant other or your mother is standing next to you. Would you act like that with them there? Very simple.
There's one thing, I don't know how I feel about it. It's because the other day I had a teacher, she was like, I can't control. They were going like, you know, I couldn't get them to quiet down, and they're like, well, I'm gonna call Mr. H over here. Like she said they're gonna call me if they couldn't behave. So I'm like, man, am I that mean? Or like, you know, like.
You can perceive it as a compliment that you are, you know, a disciplinarian. By the same token, the fact that she has to bring you in, that tells the students that she can't handle.
Yeah, that
or
she
he or
doesn't,
she,
she doesn't
I don't
have
know.
any authority in the classroom.
Yeah, she's handing over the authority to you, and that's dangerous because once you hand it over, you're not going to be there all the time. So that means that when you step out, you take the authority with you. Think of it that way. So yes, it's a compliment to you, but she is actually, she or he is, it's a she, she's setting herself up.
But I was just like,
because the students will catch on to it.
Like, wait a minute, like,
Yeah, the students are going to catch on to it very quickly. Oh, so if he's not here, we can do whatever, you know. Be very careful with that. Because it is a compliment, by the same token, it's a double-edged sword. It is. And it happens, guys. Some people have that way of handling students, and they get called in. The problem is once you depend on them to manage the classroom. Consistency is very important.
That's how I feel now. I feel like I'm so dependent now with some of the people we have to work in the same area, like they don't, you know what I mean? They don't have that interaction with students like they do with me, so it's like everyone's depending on me to be the crack whipper, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and that's the good discussion to have, because really everyone should be on the same page. The whole point of being a part of a team is that, you know, if one team member is not there, the other ones can handle it. They should be able to handle it. As a teacher, you're supposed to be handling your own classroom management. It is actually part of your T-test. It's part of how you get evaluated, okay? Remember I said body language, even posture, how you react. You know, some people look stressed. Some people, there are people that stutter when they get nervous. I talk fast when I get nervous. So I purposefully slow down, especially in Spanish. I slow down and I articulate my words, and I you know, I do it on purpose because I'm aware of it. Also, using the word I used to, a few years back, one person brought it up to me. Do you realize you say a lot? And I stopped it because of that person. I don't think I do anymore, do I? But it happens, you know. People need to let you know, you know. People need to let you know what's going on. And a true friend, a true colleague will say, hey, just FYI, you say a lot. And it really, I think it helped me because it made me a better presenter. And now I can share different, oh, there's one. I triggered it. I triggered it.
You know that President Obama
yes.
had a real bad habit of doing that.
Really?
That's why he paused a lot.
I know he used a lot of the prompter.
In one little session,
yes,
over 168
And people notice. People notice. They especially when you're listening to every single word they're saying, people will notice what's going on. Okay. That's the next session I do want to move on to. Do you have any other examples, or do you have any questions? Laredo, any questions about the variety of scenarios that can happen as you yourself are in front of the classroom? Because you're on the spotlight, folks. They're watching. Every day I come here, I'm like, okay, what am I going to wear? And I don't feel like wearing a tie today, so I'm going to wear a jacket. No tie means jacket to me. Yes, sir.
I have one question.
Sure.
Like, say for instance that you're coming into in December, for instance, that the teacher already retired, and you're going in, and there's no classroom management. How would you address that, or what steps would you have to do in order to?
You really need to plan it out, and you're going to have to establish it from the get-go, model the behavior that you want. Really, I mean, literally, you look at the layout of the classroom. you figure out, well, if this is my classroom and I have these many chairs and many tables, I need to be able to figure out what, how are they gonna respond? Where am I gonna be standing to teach? How am I gonna get around? You literally have to think about all that because you're gonna have to set up a structured environment. That's the whole point.
Would you spend like maybe a day going over what
You may
it is
have
that you
to.
expect?
It's better to invest that time teaching them how to behave and how to follow your procedures than to try to just blurt it out and hope that they get it because you're so worried about the instruction. In that instance, because I'm always pushing instruction. In that instance, arriving in December when they're all, candied up with Christmas in their minds and all that stuff, you really have to set up a structure, present it, and let them know. Be very obvious with them. Tell them, I'm having to establish a structure in this room because you're the students and I'm the teacher, and in order for us to have a successful year, I need this. And you need this, so we're gonna do it together. So you have to be very clear with them. And if you happen to be coming in December, you introduce it, and then you review it when January when they come back, because they're out 2 weeks. There's regression during those 2 weeks. But I would be very deliberate. I've seen teachers that will spend, at the beginning of the year, maybe first grade, they teach the students how to walk in line for 1 or 2 days. In pre-K or 3-year-old program, they have a rope with little rings, and each child grabs a ring. So there's 10 rings on this side, 10 rings on the other side of the rope, and each child goes on and they're part of the ring. That's how they teach them to walk. When they go to the cafeteria, they teach them how to open the milk or the chocolate. They're modeling that. They're investing the time. So obviously, depending on your grade level, of course, you would have to model the behavior, show them where everything is, remind them about the expectation. The gentleman from the video that shows them how to unstaple, he models everything. Because your perception might be different than mine. If I tell you, yeah, go ahead and sort out the papers. Okay, well, you're going to sort them out the way you think is logical, but that's not necessarily the way I thought you were going to sort them out. So you're going to have to be very deliberate if you happen to be one of those people that comes in December and there's no classroom management, because it does happen. Or you might have walked into a classroom where the teacher retired in December, but she was a sergeant and the kids were terrified of her. That happens too. So then you walk in all friendly looking, and the kid's like, oh, okay, he's new, he looks friendly, we're gonna try and test him out. So be mindful of that. And whatever you walk into, set the expectation, but be honest with them and tell them the way things are supposed to run. Don't ever assume a child knows what's going on, or that don't assume that they know what you expect from them. Common sense is we don't hurt people, right? Common sense is you don't speed. Common sense, don't speed, you're gonna get hurt. Common sense, don't drive under the influence. Don't drive while you're super sleepy. Common sense tells you that, and yet it happens. So what expects you? Why do you think that the children might have the common sense to believe that they're supposed to behave? So you have to tell them how to behave. They're all trainable. Yeah, keep that in mind, please. Any other questions or comments on this section? Because I need to move on to the handbooks. You will be receiving handbooks, from wherever you're hired. Okay? So what I shared with you in Laredo, let me borrow that one, please. Laredo, you have these handbooks, the district handbooks, the campus handbooks. You have them in your Padlet. You have one from Fort Bend ISD in Houston, Missouri City area.
West Campus.
You have one from
West Campus.
West Campus, one from BISD. So these are samples, and what I'm going to have the students or the candidates do here, they're going to work as a team. For example, you two gentlemen, you two, you three can work with it, and you're going to look at your sample of the handbook and you're going to review it. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to look it over. You're going to pretend that you just got it from your assistant principal because you just joined that faculty. This is the type of handbooks you actually get, folks. Okay? You still have yours?
I still have
Excellent.
mine as well.
Now, I will tell you, some campuses, they have a binder. I used to make a binder when I first started as an admin, and as soon as I realized how crazy it got with the copies and the binders, and the fact that the binders would go on a shelf, I said, you know what? We're going digital. So we started going digital. But there's the danger of that is that it might not be read. And even this hard copy might not be read. But I wanted to give you an example of what a real handbook looks like and the variety. Some of these are 40 pages. One of them is 17 pages. Another one is like 36 pages. There is no standard. But I can tell you that every campus expects you to follow this. And they also expect you to sign off on it. Because if you ever do make a mistake or you do something that is not correct or something inappropriate, they're going to say, you knew about this because you have a manual. You have an employee manual that also needs to be signed. So that just like we do it to the students, the code of conduct, well, guess what, folks? There's a little code of conduct and an employee handbook for the teachers too. And this has classroom management in there also. So I wanted to give you about 10 minutes to review it, and then we're going to discuss them. So if you're at home, Laredo people or even Brownsville people, choose one of them, choose one of the manuals that you see in your Padlet, and please review it, the different sections that it has. For example, this one has overview, scope and district's disciplinary section, general types of prohibited conduct, removal from the district, suspension, expulsions. So this one is obviously a lot of discipline, okay? And this is the student code of conduct. So I want you to read over these and then share your thoughts about them with your group, but also you'll be sharing with us as a whole group, okay? So we're gonna put the timer for 10 minutes. Any questions about what you're supposed to do here? You're welcome to write notes. You're welcome to keep these copies. These are in public websites. I got them from their websites. And I've used a few of them for a few years now, okay? So we'll do 10 minutes and then we'll start debriefing. Whenever you get a time, just go to online timer.
Yeah. The one thing I noticed was that they require students to get have a minimum of 2.5.
Did you get a hand? You got two?
I think that's in one of the reasons I asked that, when my first job there at IDEA, I went in as a ninth grade geometry teacher, because I think the grade more and just started as a teacher.
Well,
it was more of a fear type of situation because I wasn't getting what I was getting myself into. Because that just happened, you know, it's still fresh in the kids' mind. That's all that we talk about. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and they were still able to, you know, go over the material that was required. Well, I mean, see, most of the ninth grade team, you know, all the ones that, you know, we all got together, make sure no one talks about it. If you hear anyone talking about it, shut it down because you don't want to hear it.
You all got on the same page. Because all it takes is one that you're talking, and it's gonna spread like wildfire.
I think from what I heard from one of the parents that was also on.
Pop-up surveillance cameras. They have cameras all over the house.
He ended up getting acquitted, but his reputation was tarnished.
All the high school cameras
That's what I was curious about.
Yeah, you think
Just like, I'm assuming the minimum police are like
Yeah,
that, I mean, that's for students that have to.
Yeah, it's a 2013, 2014.
For the entire there's that one student, it's only for a few students. The teacher's normal schedule.
Yeah, then I guess it was assuming
And then, Hannah.
So like
yeah, like, I mean,
Yes.
I mean, I really enjoyed 2.5 GPA.
It also says non-comprehensive. Non-comprehensive.
Forget about him.
It's a closed campus.
You know that? Non-comprehensive.
So is there a lot of business in the campus?
The very first
Does
that mean that only
In the morning, during lunch. I mean, if you really
Friends
had
in high school generally
and
one of them are scientific or vocational.
contrast. Yeah, that's what the contrast is. Select the student there where admission is restricted.
Right.
He asked me what you stood up.
So in a common, it's open, children are automatically.
For example,
So like public welcome.
for example, I was actually a student in my class.
So your daughter, your son is subject to second.
Or a few students have been active.
So I'm assuming it's equal, because like I know that there's one part where it says that they're not compromising, that they're not going along with the that they just.
Yeah.
And I want to see.
Interscholastic activities, technology, Spanish, and Spanish 1, 2, 3, and 4, biology, chemistry, or physics. Biology, physics, AP physics. US history or US history. Oh, okay, so it gives them the basis. They don't have to take geography. Any student who is below 2.0 in any semester or cumulative grade point average for below 2.5 makes an academic information. So if, well, I mean, that's the thing, if you have below a 2.5,
So then it's not really a concept.
as opposed to here where you have 2.5, or so in other words, it's more of an average.
What is clear? Page 10.
So, I'm assuming that
Just like science.
one of the things that I would have problems with is I would submit them, but they're not physically, they're in campus, like say they're in the restroom, or they're gonna attend the meetings, or in the nurse, or in the so that needs to be cleared. Where? 3 days. Either that or, checking the I mean, but specifically, that's the one that I would think. Specifically, in that classroom, just to get
What are these all? It's just for.
Okay, guys, I need you to work on this.
I'm assuming for leaving campus without
Yeah,
Because the bullet right above it is students must never leave campus without permission. Students must obtain an off-campus pass from the attendance before.
But of course, by the second time, not the first time.
I don't know what you do. I know what dress code is strong. And this is like.
Lunch attendance, after school attendance. Belts and buckles must be appropriate, not have any issues or logos. Aw, man, I actually quit that man. But belts must not have a dent. I had my chain when I was in
Which one did you?
Hair does not be a distraction. I was going to take my time. Flip-flops.
We've got a couple minutes left, so you can point out some features that you caught your eye and you want to share with the rest of the group. A couple minutes.
Oh, right. I forget the schools off of it.
Academic dishonesty.
Hey guys, read page 9 at the very bottom.
Uniform
compliance. These are the offenses.
Relations, no.
That's the
behavioral prohibition.
That's where it falls in.
Students are
Uniform
And then
complaints. Is this legal rulings? Prohibited illegal and dangerous items, firearms, explosive devices, knives, razors, sharp items, controlled alcohol, substance, alcohol, marijuana, or related martial arts.
Every time I read because it's always so
Well, okay, so it says they have
So
It was.
That's what I'm saying. And then 2.0, and it seems so
okay, but that's to maintain a
okay, so
according to this, does that mean that if they have below 2.0, they don't get because the concept is, if it's below 2.5.
Okay, we're gonna bring it back. So I was glad to see that you all were sharing thoughts, and I even heard a comment. Look at page 9. So obviously something was seen. These are some code of conducts. Each group has a different handbook. So, and I wanted to give you the variety so that when you share it, you can hear the variety that's out there. These are actual handbooks that are out there, folks. I got them from the websites of the schools and the school districts. Okay, so I'm going to start with this group and share what you picked up on from that handbook. Obviously, this is an official document, and these are actually board approved. All of these things have to be board approved, so it's on their website. So I wanted each group to share your thoughts and what you caught on, and what resonated from your specific handbook. Okay? And that way we can all hear what their handbook was like.
Well, the one that stood out for me, anyway, it was from Fort Bend Independent School District. On page 13, it was when it's okay to remove a student.
The removal of a student? Okay.
In a classroom. And it states here that it's okay to remove the student if he or she has a sexual assault or aggravated sexual assault against the teacher.
And that, obviously that would be something that that is a serious issue, because it requires, obviously charges were filed, there's an investigation happening, so there has to be a removal of the student. Some schools would have, some districts would have an alternative campus, others might have JJAP, like juvenile.
Yeah.
Okay, that could be an option, but the fact that it's written there obviously is for a reason, because it's a part of the procedure. So that, that resonated with you.
Yeah, I mean, that's how
It caught your
bad
eye.
it is that they literally have to put it on the.
You do. Remember, the legal system, they have to spell it out. And they do it on purpose. They try to be as detailed as possible. I learned my lesson when I was working in a middle school. I caught a student with a package of marijuana once I got to middle school, not in elementary, in middle school. And I happened to take a picture of it. And I zoomed in, and the picture, it was a box, a little box. The box was about this big. But when I zoomed in the picture, I made it 8 by 10, so the box looked this big. And so it was more impacting than I would have liked it. So my point was that they measure, apparently the weight and all that determines what kind of legal issue or legal procedure is followed based on the weight or the amount that is in the possession of the student. So I learned my lesson that after that, I would use either a dollar bill or a pen or something as a point of reference to show how big the package was. I didn't do it the first time, and that's where the police had to, go back and dig and all that. But it was interesting that I had to be that exact. I understand from an assistant principal friend of mine that he was investigating an issue that happened outside of school. He literally had to count the steps from the front door of the school or the edge of the school to the actual park where the incident happened so that he could follow up on the investigation. They made him count, okay, how far away from the school was this? So he had to walk it and figure it out and then make it part of his documentation. Some sort of legality about the distance from the campus. Okay, it's like saying you can't have a bar within a certain amount of feet from a school. There's a law about that. You can't be having a bar, too close to a school. It doesn't work like that. Same thing with this. So when they point that out, that child has to be removed. Yeah, they do have to be, or assaulting someone, a felony. They've been they've committed a felony. There are students out there in high school that commit felonies, guys. Misdemeanors and felonies. Okay, same thing with, there are teachers out there that commit a felony at night. They think they're gonna go teach in the morning, and like, no, you can't be around children right now. You gotta go home. It happens. Yes, ma'am, you wanted to share?
No, that there is a bar close to Peña Elementary.
I would be curious about the distance to make sure, I would be curious about the distance and, that would be my first question. How far is it? Is it within the legal perspective on that? I would be curious about that. We had a situation one time, we were taking a field trip and we were by a downtown school, and the children were going to the field trip, and as we were driving by a car lot, that the owner of the car lot decided to have car wash during the day, and it so happened it was ladies in very small attire. So all the children were, the bus driver was walking by, and all the kids were looking at the car wash. And, but we didn't know the car wash was happening. They're like, okay, guys, look over there. Look over. We were just trying to distract them. But we had a talk with the owner of the car wash. It was during the day, so the children were supposed to be in school, but we were taking them on a field trip. Things like that will happen, But how you address it makes a difference. The bar thing, I would be curious about that. Same thing with certain individuals that need a little sign outside their door, their house, and to post a sign. There's a legality of that. If you're like a registered sex offender, well, there's a legality of how far they can live from a playground or a school or anything like that, where children gather. There's certain legalities about that, folks. Yeah. So they have to spell it out. And what else got your attention from that student handbook?
Well, I was just looking for specifics as far as how long you have to wait before you can exercise removing a student from the thing. And I think, in my opinion, as long as there's no specifics about here, the general rule that I would go by would be 2 strikes. By the 3rd one, it's time to call in somebody and get him out. Because then he's disrupting the learning for everybody else.
Good point. Good point.
Becoming a nuisance.
Sounds like you have a game plan already. keep in mind, folks, your campus, wherever you're at, is supposed to have a discipline plan. They're supposed to. There are certain forms that need to be filled out. I know some schools have, some districts have the official form that, you have to write down the incident, what happened. The students have to be given the right to write their version of the story. It happens. But you always have to address it with a warning, maybe even 2. But if you feel the need to remove a student, then you want to be careful about just saying, get out of the room, go away or anything like that. It has happened. But what happens then? That the child exits the room. They're wandering the hallway. What happens if they get hurt while they're wandering the hallway? They slip, or they get beat up. Or where were you supposed to be? Who was supposed to be watching them? A teacher. So if you're going to remove a student, be very mindful of your campus discipline plan. If there's a form that you need to fill out while you tell the students, okay guys, I need you to work out these 2 problems the same way we've been learning them, go ahead and work on them. While they're working on that independent practice, fill out the form, call the office, yes, I need a student removed. I have a discipline referral. They'll send an AP, they'll send an aide, they'll send a security guard, and you give them the referral and say, he needs to go with you, or you need to go with him. And at least that way you're removing the student, you're documenting it, but you're following the procedure that's in place. I will tell you, some campuses are very organized and very structured about their discipline. There's other campuses that kind of wing it. And depending on how the children are acting, or they'll get after the students, they'll do, but they don't have a structured discipline plan. So first thing you want to do when you go into your campus, when you get hired, find out what the discipline plan is in that campus. The district has one, but then the campuses can adapt it or can adjust it to fit their needs. Obviously, elementaries, they deal with gum, they deal with, what was it? She took my pencil, stuff like that, or she stuck her tongue out at me, stuff like that. Elementaries tend to deal with little things. Every so often they have little situations though. 5th graders. 5th graders, I have a colleague of mine in another school district that told me that a 5th grader was walking behind her and just got a handful. And he said, he complimented her, but he still got a handful, and that was inappropriate. So he was taken to the office very quickly. Okay? And that's 5th grade. It happens, folks. Middle school, I'm sure the gentleman has a variety of stories. Okay? I will tell you, middle school, it opens up their world. Students, see the freedom they have. They don't get walked to the cafeteria anymore. They don't get walked over to the gym anymore. They're just told, you need to go eat. You need to go, you need to get to your class on your own. And some students are good about it because they're responsible. Other students get lost or start hanging out with their friends, and their responsibilities are not a priority. Okay, but definitely know your discipline plan for your campus, and just ask your administrator, hey, what's the discipline plan here? Are there forms that I have to fill out, or how do if I need to address, and that way you can have it on the wall. Some schools make posters. There's a poster that I really like here. Discipline plan. This is done in a positive spin. What does it take to be a husky? Obviously, the mascot is a husky. So the way they interpret is, we want to show students what we expect, the positive perspective, helping others, understanding differences, show respect, kind to all, ignite enthusiasm. So this is another way. It's a discipline plan because you're doing the positive, but at the same time, you're going to need, for those students that can't handle this, you're going to need those sample documents. And every school has them. They might be triplicates. You write them out and you send them with the students. You're documenting. Nowadays, folks, there's digital. So you might have to write it out, but then you have to type it in so it's in the database. They can track students now where they can tell you, you know what, this student has problems every afternoon around this side of the building. Something's going on. They have software for that. In our case, we use Review 360. I've seen a variety of softwares, but that's the one that stands out the most. Teachers have to fill in and type in the referral, and then the AP is supposed to go in there and address it, and then type in the resolution. How was it handled? You may also experience a colleague that wants blood. I got to see a band director that told me, Mr. Olvera, well, yes, that kid, he's supposed to be at back. He did this and did that. Yeah, it's been handled. He's going to be going to the alternative, but it takes a few days to process the paperwork and all that. But no, he needs to go now. The kid was fine. He did what he did, and the teacher wanted more. The punishment was already assigned. The student was gonna get his punishment, but he wasn't gonna be depressed in front of his friends. He was fine. He was still going to class. He was doing what he had to. He took a wrong action. He did something wrong, and he was gonna get punished for it. But the teacher wanted immediate. I call it the cockroach poison syndrome. You know how when you want to kill a cockroach or ants, you want them to die in front of you, right there, versus putting the bad food that they eat and they take it back to their nest and then they die days later. Some people want the students to pay immediately, and you want to be careful about that, folks. At the end of the day, they're still children. They are. We're the adults. They're the children. Adults make bad choices. The children make bad choices. A rule I live by: no child was born a jerk. I don't think anybody was born a jerk. Yet there are people that act like that. But they weren't born like that. Something happened. Something turned them into that. Or something affected them enough that they made those kind of choices to act like that. So when you understand that it's not personal, you'll be better off. In high school, folks, in middle school, and even in some elementaries, you might be called a couple colorful words. When I first got to the middle school I worked at for 3 years, I learned about 3 words on the first 2 days I was there. Never heard those words before. A 35-year-old man, and I had never heard a couple of the words they told me. What does that mean? He told me what it meant, and then I took him to the office, But it was a learning experience. I didn't take it personal. This is a 12-year-old calling me something. It's a kid. It's a 13-year-old telling me to go say hi to my mother. It's a kid. You see what I'm saying? It's a kid. It's not an adult. It's not a fighting situation. You don't give them that. It's not worth you losing your certificate or your cool because a child is saying something inappropriate. Adults say inappropriate things. Yes, sir.
But in a way, they can be more dangerous than an adult, because in an adult, in the process of committing a crime, at least they think of the consequences before they do it and they stop. As a child, doesn't think of the consequences at that moment, and they still go ahead and do it.
Totally unaware of the consequences. They can be. And some of those kids, we had one that was about this tall, and I remember because I kept looking up at him whenever I would discipline him. About this tall, big guy. He had a thing about chairs, throwing chairs, But once you see them cry because now they're getting arrested, you remember it's a kid, it's a student, it's a child. They're just big bodies, but they're still children. We had one that as he was getting arrested, he tried to assault one of the teachers on his way out of the building because he was handcuffed, and he still tried to kick a teacher on the way out. The teacher was just passing by. And the teacher just got out of the way, no big deal. But the child was still, the consequence. He didn't care about the consequences. He just wanted to hit somebody.
We have a question.
Oh, we have a question?
Yes.
John, we have a question. Raquel, 07? No, that would have been cool, 007. Do the school buses have cameras, and do they view them before the student is removed? I know several districts, and I want to say many of them have cameras in the bus. the question then comes out, who views it? Well, I will tell you that what I'm aware of is that an administrator sees the video, because we have parents sometimes, well, I want to see the video, I want to know what happened. No, you're not going to see the video. It's not for you to see. It's for the administration to see. And then the decision's made. You know, now you might tell me, yeah, but I just saw a video on the news.
Police report.
Or the police report.
Well, I mean, you get a police report, the police
Yeah.
requested.
Yeah, that's now officially requested, but within the school district, the administration sees it. But yeah, videos, I mean, they're worth 1,000 words, and pictures are worth 1,000 words, videos, a million. And you've seen videos where the somebody was doing something with a child, or hitting, or, you know, just something inappropriate. So yeah, buses do have video cameras, and now buses have GPS systems. So we can track buses and, you know, make sure they stay on course. There's a lot of traveling going on, guys. A lot of traveling. Districts, football games, CTE competitions, band. It's amazing the number of buses, the activities, the field trips, all of that. So there's GPS, there's video cameras in buses, and of course, it's for student safety. I was asking one of my children, so how's the bus ride? Oh, it's fine. We're all on our phones. When I was a kid, we all kept talking, and the bus driver, poor bus driver, we drove him crazy because we wouldn't be quiet. Now, the way she's describing it to me, people are texting literally to each other in the bus. So the bus driver's a little bit happier about that because it's a little bit calmer. Okay? But then again, you know, there's always going to be characters.
Or a question from the radio.
Oh, another question. Can parents request an open records of the footage? That would be more of an open records. You gotta go to an official document and put it in writing, and it also depends on the district. I mean, that would definitely be a good question for your public information department. Just keep in mind, the ones I've been made aware of, that it's a local investigation about a discipline issue, it's the administrators. I guess also the severity of the issue, if it becomes a felony or something, that could be a factor in letting the footage to the authorities. I still want to know what happened to the kid that fell off the bus. I never found out. Because, you know, to open the door of the back of a bus, you have to literally lift it. And it's not an easy handle that just flips open. Another thing, people don't realize how high those buses are. They're high. You try jumping up.
The back end is pretty.
The back end is lifted. So I'm wondering, and I never found out, to be honest. I was always curious. How did that kid fall off the bus and nobody found out?
What grade was it?
It was a.
Middle school or?
I honestly don't remember. I don't remember what grade, but it wasn't an elementary kid.
Well, because as soon as that door opens, it makes that loud noise.
Oh yeah, it's a loud
What could have
noise.
happened is that the latch might have been really loose too.
There's
and
also
then then the alarm didn't work.
Yeah, there's also some
Would've
that they
been the
wear, they
perfect
completely
incident,
like
you know?
take off the
Yeah.
alarm so it doesn't make a sound.
But it ended up was that the
Was
female
there-
that ended up?
It was in the valley. Some child fell off the bus outside.
Was it a female that suicided? Is that one?
Well, I never really found. I never got to see what was a clear picture.
Yeah,
Because
that
at
was,
some point they mentioned it might have been a suicide.
A female opened the back
Suicide
door of the
by
bus.
Island
While
Street.
the bus was on the freeway and she jumped off and she died.
Wow.
I think it was the last year, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
What district?
I don't
Up
remember
in the
what
valley.
district it was,
Yeah.
but it was here in the valley.
Here in the
yeah.
valley.
Upper
Here in the valley. Okay, so, seatbelts, no, buses, the only seatbelts I know about buses, that's in the life skills when they, transport special education, the wheelchairs, or special ed buses, the little buses, those are the only ones. The regular school buses do not have seatbelts other than the bus driver.
They have
Yeah.
every single
It was a Harlingen boy.
It was a Harlingen boy.
Born in middle
Yeah,
school.
little boy, middle school.
Yeah,
They were on a
that's a
field trip
shame,
to
you
the
know.
University of Texas.
Yeah, it's a shame, but you're right, those, when that door opens, it makes a big scandal, you know, so, you know, I'd be curious to see what happened there, or what was the actual, result of the investigation. Want to go into rules and consequences. For the next session, we are going to be having you, you know, bring up or point out some rules and consequences for your classroom. Keep in mind, different schools have different discipline plans. Some schools even have positive behavior intervention systems, PBIS, where they try to approach discipline in a positive manner. And I'll give you an example. we had at one middle school, we had a positive behavior intervention plan where we would carry coins, little wooden coins like the ones we used to use to have lunch. I'm dating myself, but back in the day, as kids, they would give us little coins, and that was your lunch ticket, you know. So this school would give the coins to the teachers, and if they caught you being good, doing something good or helping or doing something that like you got kudos for, they would give you the coin. And you would go back to your homeroom and say, I got a coin, and you would put it in your box, in your little jar. So it was caught being good. You see that? It's a different approach. Instead of trying to bust you for doing something wrong, they're thanking you and recognizing you for doing something good. So it was called caught being good. And there's different versions of it. There's different variations.
I don't know if it was this one or not, but that guy in the video, the beginning of the class does that. At some point, they introduce something similar, right? Like a sticker or some sort.
Some sort of system where he acknowledges the student.
And it was a school-wide thing, like
yes,
so many stickers.
A school-wide plan. You know, and they do it on purpose because they want the students to know, hey, you're gonna get caught being good. You're gonna get something. So think about it this way: instead of looking at it, well, you're gonna get busted and punished, you're actually gonna get recognized for doing something good, and you know, and your class might benefit. Your whole class might win a pizza party.
Yeah.
Well, man, you say pizza in elementary, they'll do anything.
We would have popcorn pickle.
Pickle. I mean, we had a middle school where we would freeze the pickle juice, and we would put it in those little salsa things, and the kids, can I get a pickle shot? Don't call it that, it's pickle juice, but they would call it a pickle shot. You know, it's like, they would go back to the classroom after lunch all wired, but it was, you know, they liked it. They thought it was fun. One school had the name of the school, Bucks. So it was like the Berkeley Bucks, and Bucks as in money. So they had fake money, and they would give it to the students, and then they had a store in the school, and the kids could go buy pencils and markers and highlighters, but they had to use the Berkeley Bucks. And how did they get the Berkeley Bucks? By being good, by behaving, by being caught doing something well. So kids loved it. They thought it was the coolest thing to go and buy because I had Berkeley Bucks.
One of my coworkers would do that, but the thing is that she would invest it out of her own. So like she would give them a certain amount, and for let's say if they were standing without permission, she would take away one of them.
Demerits, kind of like demerits.
So I think she would give them like 15 per week, and she would start taking them away. And by the end of the week, she'd bring in like a box of pizza, and whoever had like 5 or 10 of them would get a slice of pizza.
People do that. Some teachers decide to do it in their classroom, and they have a little classroom store.
Yeah.
And they'll do the little tickets, and for 2 tickets you get a pencil, and for 3 tickets you get this. Now some schools will invest in that, but in all fairness, a lot of teachers do their own shopping. The dollar store is a wonderful place for people, for teachers sometimes, because that's where you get the cutesy stuff. Students will do anything for a sticker, especially nowadays, Marvel or DC, or it's amazing. But they settle for the simplest things. Whatever works for your kids.
I was actually rearranging the bucks for the class.
Okay.
Like put them in order and stuff for them. Because if you get up without permission, it's like $5 taken away from your.
Wow. And it's a system, and if it works for your campus or it works for your classroom, go for it. Some schools are proactive and they do it campus wide, and everybody agrees and everybody's on board. Other schools may not have it as structured, so a teacher might say, well, I'm doing it for my class and my kids are behaving, and that's wonderful, but you still need to consider the rest of the campus. I know a middle school campus that uses Class Dojo, the one I introduced last time. They use it. So within the 6th grade, Team 6-1, Team 6-2, and Team 6-3, whichever has the most Class Dojo points gets a pizza party for that 6 weeks. So middle school kids, they want their pizza and they're willing to get their Class Dojo points. So you have one 7th grade class, one 8th grade class, and one 6th grade class. Well, that's like maybe 10 pizzas, maybe, 15 pizzas. Not bad for, having them work at their disciplines for middle school. Okay? So rules and consequences, they have to be precise and they have to be realistic. You know, you can't get rid of a child the first time they act up. You know, you mentioned warnings. Yes, give the warnings. You know, you also have to make the students aware of them. Don't sneak it up on them. I had a colleague of mine that found out one of his students was acting up in the restroom, and he took him out of the cafeteria. The student had to eat with him for like a week. Where did that come from? The parent made an issue, and the principal said, "Well, do you have it documented? Is that part of your discipline plan?" No, I didn't want him to be with the other kids for 1 week. You can't really do that. You have to establish your procedure, your consequences. You have to establish your rules, and display them. That way, there's no misunderstanding. Why are you getting after me? Well, and review the rules with them, folks. Don't ever feel that students are too old to be told about the rules. Weren't you all told about the rules here? You're adults, and you were told about the rules here. You were told about electronic devices. You were told about modules. You were told about homework, and you're adults, and they told you about the rules, right?
Yeah.
Now, were there some consequences? There's some consequences to it. We're doing it with adults. Why are we not doing it with students? You see what I'm saying? Be clear about this. Okay? Now, some people like to make them colorful. Classroom rules, very nice, colorful. Keeping it positive. Listen when others are talking. Follow directions. Keep hands and feet and objects to yourself. Work quietly. Show respect. Work and play in a safe manner. Very straightforward. You can find these anywhere on the net. You can make up your own. Just be sure to be consistent. And also, I know that I remember the multiplication facts. I know that was part of it. Just the only thing is be careful, because we don't want students to perceive an activity as an instructional activity as a punishment. I think a few years ago there was some PE coach that was making kids jump, and the child had a situation, a physical situation happen. You have to be careful the punishments that you assign. I don't know about you, but I remember in high school, they would make kids run, like, okay, you're not behaving, go run 10 laps. Well, in the hot sun nowadays, you gotta be careful with that. Punishments have to be clear, but they also have to be appropriate to whatever the action was, or whatever the misbehavior was. First time, second time, third time, the student breaks a rule. Some of them, you may have to set them apart. Remember, you can always tell a student, you know what, obviously you can't, you're struggling in that table, you need to relocate to that section over there. And there might be some that say no, you might actually be confronted with it. But that's why you may have to take them I need to talk to you outside, because nobody likes to be humiliated. So you may have to have a chat with the student outside in the hallway, in plain view, and remind them about the expectation, and remind them about the rules. It happens. These are referrals, other samples of referrals also. And I included in the PowerPoint some academic rewards that you might assign. Some of you may have certificates, badges. Some of you may have little stars, point systems. Others may go more for the simple praise, folks. Who doesn't like to be praised? A simple thank you for sharing, makes you want to share again. A simple, hey, you know what? That's a great idea. Thank you very much. You told me about the slide ruler. I didn't know about the slide ruler. I remember that. So that's memorable to me, and the fact that I bring it up is like, oh, okay, it's a positive note. You really want to surprise parents? Call them up when their students are doing well and say, hey, I just wanted to call and tell you that Carlitos, he's doing better. He's doing well today. Be sure to have a talk with him and say, and let him know that I called and he's doing well. Those positive calls, they're rare, guys. As a parent, parents freak out when they get those calls. So what do you mean?
Yep. They love that.
What do you mean by he was behaving? So you have to explain, yes, he was actually behaving. What?
You have the wrong number.
Are you sure?
All negative.
Hey man, that actually happened to me. That actually happened to me.
Did it happen?
Yeah.
You want to share that experience?
Well, I had this one student, and he was essentially like a problem with everyone. So I started like talking with him, getting to know him a little bit more. Before the end of the school year, he actually really, really liked my class, and so I felt, you know, I'll call mom. No one had her phone number because she had it blocked to everyone because of the same thing. And he said, well, you can call my mom at this number, and he gave me her cell phone number. So when I actually reached out to her, she said, are you sure you're talking about my son? And I told her, yeah, he's doing really well. He's become one of my star students. He's become a leader for his class, so he deserves to be praised. And I said, okay, well, thank you for calling me. I'll make sure I treat him this weekend to something special.
Excellent. And that's a very good example of a positive call. You know, though rare sometimes, they really should be more common. Now, you're not going to call every single student, you know, but at least if you have that star student that you've noticed change, you share that praise and you share that information with the parents, and you know, make the child's day, and they'll remember that. Like, oh yeah, teacher called, and I got ice cream that weekend or whatever. I had a student that I wasn't aware was a BI student. He was a 5th grader, and I always remember his name because I had just seen Beverly Hills Cop, and his name was Axel. You know, the guy, a little guy, Axel. That was his name. And I go, hey, and he was fine with me, but he was just a you know, Tasmanian devil in PE. He was just causing up a storm and just making trouble, but he was fine with me. What had happened is, I get along with children, and they're very straightforward with them, and I praise them a lot, and I enjoy just sharing. So I never realized, and I hadn't been told, that he had a behavioral issue, and he had a checklist that every day I was supposed to initial that he had behaved in the classroom. I wasn't aware because I hadn't been told, but more importantly, I wasn't aware because he wasn't acting up with me.
Yeah.
With me, he was fine. I wasn't an A student, but he was a B student, you know, respected, got along, and he was fine. With the PE teacher, he was all over the place and getting upset, getting into little rumbles, this and that. And then I became aware he was a BI student, and I go, hey, I'm supposed to do this every day. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. We gonna have a problem? No? Okay. And we had a great year. I mean, but the approach was very simple. You know, don't cause any trouble, and we'll be okay. And then, of course, you know, I got along with him. But it was different in PE because the whistle and power struggle, things like that. That's gonna happen. The classroom store, we already talked about that. Okay. In elementary, you can also have them be first in line. You give them assignments. You let them. In elementary, you can also have them. Oh, whoever behaves the best gets to be the line leader. Whoever behaves the best, or whoever gets these many points, they get to have lunch with teacher. And apparently, they like to have lunch with teacher. Okay. In middle school and high school, it depends. They might take it the right way. They might take it as a punishment. I know one teacher that literally goes to the cafeteria every day and says, you have detention with me. He tells them throughout the day, you're gonna have detention, and he jots on their name, and if they don't show up to his classroom for lunch detention, he goes and picks them up from lunch. And that works for him. It works for him. It may not work for other teachers, but it works for him. And he came from elementary. The funny thing is, he comes from elementary, goes into middle school, and he is very driven and very focused. He's a math teacher, okay? Very, very black and white, very black and white. So in his mind, that's the right way to do things, and that's what he conveys to the students, okay? He's so focused that when his administrator, and I started cracking up, his administrator told him, thank you, Mr. So-so, you show up on time, you do your lesson plans, you have great discipline, you do all the reports that we ask of you. And the administrator was thanking him, and I almost said his name. He said, doesn't take much to impress you all, does it? That was his response.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't take much to impress you. What does that tell you about that situation in that campus?
It's pretty relaxed.
It's pretty relaxed. In his mind, he's doing his job. He's doing what he's supposed to do. But the administrator was so happy and so thankful and so grateful, and he's got a dry humor. So he says it doesn't really take a lot to impress you all, does it? Because he comes from an elementary that was very structured. Okay, but so when he told me the story, I mean, I obviously started laughing, but it told me a little bit more about that campus. If they're thanking him for showing up on time, and they're thanking him for submitting his lesson plans on time, what does that tell you? So just keep those.
It's the campus rules and procedures.
Yeah, what's going on? You remember I keep telling you to know your students? Know their interests. Some of them, you're gonna have students that like to draw, or students that like to doodle, or students that are, you're gonna have athletes, you're gonna have the artists, you're gonna have the Star Trek kids, you're gonna have the Marvel kids, you know, the what is it, graphic novel kids, because we don't wanna say comic books as adults. Graphic novels, we're gonna have those kids. Know their interests, you know, you might bring it up. You might bring it up. And a lot of positive behavior, guys. Not only from them, you expect it, but from you and how you model it. You know, how you handle situations, how you react. I've had teachers that I caught one that she got an announcement, and she was pretty much supposed to stop instruction and go to an assembly. And you know, we don't like to do that. You're not supposed to really do that, stop instruction for an assembly, but it was a serious situation. But the way she reacted was very negative. Started commenting on the school, started commenting on the administration, and the children were listening to all this. And notice that I keep saying children, because up until you're 18, you're still a child. I do it on purpose. I had a parent that told me, Mr. Olvera, you need to stop following my child in the hallway. And I told her, man, when your child gets into the classroom, instead of roaming the hallway, I'll stop following him. 16-year-old didn't want to go into the classroom. So he complained to his mother that he was being followed in the hallway. Well, yeah, get into the classroom and we won't have a problem. What does that tell you about the parent? If she's complaining. So think of it this way. It's still a child. You have them for a year. The parent has them for life. So you try to do your impact, you try to do your best and see what you can, what you can do. Any questions? And you may have more for the next session. The next session we're going to delve into more examples, guys. I really do want to make sure. Really do want to make sure you understand that classroom management is not just a bunch of rules on the wall. It's actually the way you present everything. What I'm going to share with you now, I always like to do this. I like to remind you, you will be judged and evaluated on T-tests, on classroom management also. There's 4 of them. And what I want you to do on this one, I'm going to ask several of you to use your teacher voice and describe and read the different levels. Okay? First of all, the dimensions, managing student behavior. In other words, are you going to be evaluated in the way that you manage your classroom and discipline? Yes, you will. Because when we go evaluate you, we sit down, we draw a map of the room, we draw the different, in my case, I draw a diagram of the desks, and I write boy, girl, boy, whatever. And as you ask questions, I put their name down. I have different symbols. If you ask a question, I put a Q. If they answer, I put an A. And I do it on purpose on a diagram so that when I do the final evaluation, I know exactly who you called. Did you call only that side of the room? Did you call the same kid 3 times? You know how that goes. If I know you're going to answer correctly, I'm going to call you. If I know that you tend to hesitate, I'm going to try and stay away from you during the evaluation. But you want to be careful about that because in my case, I do a diagram and I do it on purpose. Because
long are the evaluations?
The formal evaluations tend to be 45 minutes.
So if you have an administrator that comes into an elementary classroom and say kinder?
Yep.
Because this happened during one of my observations. She went in, sat in the middle of the class, nobody addressed her, she just sat there and she was taking notes. And
Yep.
but it took about maybe 10, 15 minutes.
There are instances where the administrator and the teacher can say, okay, I'm going to come in 15 minutes on that day, 15 minutes on that day, 15 minutes, and it totals 45. But by the time you're doing that, you're talking about a teacher that's experienced, you're talking about a teacher that has, is very comfortable with their content and their grade level and their structure and all that. As a new teacher, you can expect a formal observation the first semester and a formal observation the second semester. And I would also expect various walkthroughs, because walkthroughs can be unannounced. I could be walking by with my index cards or whatever, and I'm passing by. Let me drop in for 4 minutes, 3 minutes, and that's a walkthrough, just to make sure everything's fine. Formal observations, those tend to be more, there's a window. I'm gonna drop by during this week. Well, chances are you're not gonna get Monday or Friday because, so it's now Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Well, you happen to be out on Wednesday because you have staff development, so now it's going to be Tuesday or Thursday. So you can pretty much figure out when they're going to drop in. And it's always going to be at the beginning of the period or at the beginning of the subject area, because they need to see the whole cycle. The introduction, the modeling, the classroom practice, the guided practice, the independent practice, and of course, what product you produced, and the closure. But I share this with you because have you all had the T-test training? No. Okay. Who is it? Miss Castro, most likely? Miss Castro's a colleague of mine. She's going to go over this in a lot more detail, a lot more than this. But I always like to connect it to my sessions because you will be hearing more about this. I'm going to ask one of you to read the different columns just so we can go over them very quickly. The teacher establishes, communicates, and maintains clear expectations for student behavior. Not only do you have to set them up and share them with the student, you have to be consistent and maintain them throughout the year. So it's already telling you, tell the students the rules. Don't just put them up there. Tell them what you expect. So let's use our teacher voice, and I'm going to be asking a couple who wants to volunteer for improvement needed. Any volunteers? Okay, sir, on this side.
Rarely or unfairly enforces campus or classroom behavior standards. Student behavior impedes learning in the classroom.
You see how can you visualize a classroom where the rules are being enforced rarely or unfairly? And now the student behavior is interfering with the learning. That has happened. Developing.
Inconsistently implements the campus and or classroom behavior system. Student failure to meet expected classroom behavior standards, interrupting learning.
Okay, so now we've gotten away from rarely, now it's inconsistent. So in other words, it does happen, but not consistently, and the students do fail to meet the expected classroom behavior. Once again, still interrupting the learning. Okay, now what would a proficient teacher look like?
Consistently implements the campus and or classroom behavior system efficiently. Most students meet expected classroom behavior standards.
Okay, so now there is some consistency with this one. It doesn't say all the time, but there is consistency, and most students. So you see how the certain keywords will get you a proficient rating versus a developing rating? You don't want to look at the first two columns on the left, folks, because you don't want to be there. You want to at least be at the proficient, and as you gain experience, you move on to the left. Accomplished. What would an accomplished teacher look like?
Consistently encourages and monitors student behavior steadily, and responds to misbehavior swiftly. Most students know, understand, and respect classroom behavior standards.
Okay, so now keep the word consistent. Now, instead of just implementing, you're encouraging and monitoring the student behavior. Also, most students know and understand and respect classroom behavior. Okay? So now you see how from the left to the right, I mean from your right to your left, it's gradually becoming the student that is obtaining more of a responsibility. Okay? And I want you to know that that's the trend in T-test. The whole point is that the teacher should establish procedures and expectations so that ultimately the students can handle it. Ma'am, I think you've been dying to talk and read because that's twice.
Oh, okay.
Distinguished.
Consistently monitors behavior subtly, reinforces positive behavior appropriately, and intercepts misbehavior fluidly.
Okay. The word consist, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What was that?
Students and the teacher create, adopt, and maintain classroom behavior standards.
Okay. The word consistently stayed there. Now it's being monitoring behavior subtly. In other words, you're aware of how the kids are acting, and you're being subtle about it. You're also making sure you're reinforcing the positive behaviors. You're praising, you're acknowledging, and then and you're also intercepting misbehavior fluidly. Before it escalates, you already nipped it in the, okay? You see how it says intercepting behavior? Before it even gets out of hand, and that can be done very subtly. If you know a child's already acting up, you can simply go and, something as simple as that, folks, or something as simple as standing next to them. I will tell you, adults tend to be worse in that area than the students, because when you go and stand by the students, they quiet down because they don't want you to hear what they were talking about. And sometimes you don't want to hear what they were talking about. Adults sometimes don't respond. And I'm telling you that because I deal with teachers and I train teachers. And I've had to go stand by teachers. I've had to do that. And some of them respond and some of them actually don't. And that's when we have to announce it, folks. We've had to redirect teachers. Isn't that interesting? We're having to redirect teachers during a training. So once again, if the adults are doing it, they're good about demanding it from the students, but some of these adults do it themselves. Students and the teacher create, adopt, and maintain classroom behavior. So now in this section, the students are involved in the creation and adoption of the actual standards. How many of you have heard, well, I'm going to, together as a class, the students will share ideas, what kind of rules we need in this classroom, because this is our classroom. And, students will surprise you. Well, sir, okay, sir, everybody should respect each other. Okay, let's use that one. They can make recommendations. The students can make recommendations. Ultimately, you're in charge of the classroom. Okay? But isn't it interesting that you have classrooms that the students want to create or be part of the process to establish the rules? And that's really what the distinguished teacher would have. A setting where the students are self-monitoring, a setting where the students know exactly what's expected and actually promote it themselves. It happens. So this is just something I wanted to cover because I know that every topic that I touch on, I like to connect it to your evaluation because really that's going to be how you're going to be judged, folks. Some of you, I know, for example, you're going to get evaluated. Your appraiser doesn't know about medicine or whatever you're doing. I visited a band director one time and I was evaluating a band director. I have no idea how to play an instrument, or I knew the children were paying attention. I knew the students were engaged. I knew that the teacher was guiding them and the students were responding. So in my mind, the teacher was doing, and then the final product, the students played the piece correctly as per the guidance of the teacher. So in my mind, the teacher did his job and there were no discipline problems. But I don't know anything about band, but I'm appraising that teacher. So I have to rely on good teaching is good teaching, good structure is good structure, positive reinforcements, things like that. Okay? So We're gonna continue with this on Friday. We're gonna see a few more videos. I do want you to review the videos, folks. I do enjoy them a lot. I know that, there'll be more examples to share, okay? Any questions before we wrap it up? Or even Laredo, any questions, comments? Okay, thank you all for sharing your experiences and your thoughts. We'll see you on Friday. Thank you very much.